Victory has a smell when it grows old. Not garlands, not sandalwood, something quieter. Lamp smoke in long hallways, old flowers drying in bronze bowls, and the faint dust of a throne that has been sat on too long. After everything the Pandavas won, after exile and vows, and the great war itself, a stranger thing arrives at Hastinapura: peace. And then, one evening, the urge to leave it behind. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in Hastinapura at dusk. The heat of the day is loosening at last. Stone floors still hold a little warmth under your feet, but the corridors are beginning to cool. Lamps are being lit one by one along the palace walls. Small flames wake inside shallow bowls of oil. Gold glints softly, silk curtains stir. Somewhere deeper in the halls, incense rises in a blue thread and folds itself into the darkening air. You can hear the city settling, not sleeping yet. Never that. A city like this exhales in layers. Temple bells ring over rooftops. Cows shift in their enclosures. Wheels creak beyond the palace gates. In the kitchens, copper vessels touch with a low, bright note. A servant passes carrying ghee lamps, and their light moves over polished pillars like water. And above it all is the hush. That is what feels strange. This is the city that survived the great storm. This is the palace where the sons of Pandu finally sat, where fate had pushed them for so long. The white umbrellas rose above them. The conchs were sounded. Priests chanted blessings over clarified butter and sacred fire. The throne was no longer a dream, no longer an insult withheld by enemies, no longer the glittering problem at the center of a wounded family. It was theirs. And yet, the halls sound too large now. Your footsteps echo longer than they should. The guards are still at their posts. The banners still hang. The carved lions still watch from the stairways with their stone mouths slightly open, as if they know something and are enjoying being difficult about it. But the brightness has softened. The sharp edge of triumph has worn smooth. Even the conch shells at evening worship seem gentler now, less like a call to arms, and more like a breath released slowly into the night. You move through the palace and feel it at once. Glory has gone quiet. In one courtyard, the paving stones have just been washed. Water cools the dust and leaves the air smelling of wet earth. Jasmine hangs from trellises near a shrine lamp. A peacock cries from a wall somewhere beyond your sight, sounding offended by existence, as peacocks often do. That much, at least, has not changed. A maid kneels near a threshold, collecting wilted petals from the morning offering. An old chamberlain crosses the veranda with a lamp in one hand and keys in the other. So many keys. Enough keys to suggest he personally believes every door in the Kuru kingdom is his responsibility. He walks with solemn purpose. This is palace life. Even in the shadow of eternity, someone must still lock the grain rooms. Past him, through a carved doorway, you glimpse the inner chambers. There is Yudhishthira. He sits very still, king of Hastinapura, son of Dharma, ruler at last. His face is calm in the lamplight, but not light. Before him rests everything men pray for when they stand barefoot in temples and whisper into folded hands. Power, order, a kingdom made secure. the right to govern without fear, the long-awaited end of humiliation. And still he sits as though listening for something farther away than any messenger can ride. Close by are his brothers, each marked by time in a different way. Bhima, vast and heavy-shouldered, still looks like he could frighten a mountain into moving aside. Yet even he has grown quieter in these later years, not silent. Bhima was not shaped for silence. Give him a feast, a grievance, or an enemy, and he will meet all three with enthusiasm. But now, in the evening glow, even his breathing seems slower. The great appetite remains. Of course it does. If renunciation is coming, Bhima is unlikely to greet it like an old friend. He is the sort of man who would regard a life without proper meals as a personal insult from the cosmos. Arjuna is near, his profile sharp in shadow and flame. The hands that once drew Gandiva with effortless grace now rest unmoving on his knees. Nakula and Sahadeva, still beautiful in that pale lamp-soft way that noble faces keep even when youth has gone, stand like twin thoughts at the edge of speech. Draupadi is there too, dark-haired, grave, with the stillness of one who has seen splendor and ruin wear each other's jewelry. No one is arguing. That may be the clearest sign of all. For this family, peace without debate is almost suspicious. A servant enters, bows, and withdraws. Another brings water scented with cardamom and leaves it untouched. Through the open lattice comes the evening breeze from the river. It carries the smell of mud banks, lotus, smoke from cooking fires, and the faint sweetness of night-blooming flowers. The Ganga moves in the distance, unseen from here, but felt, always felt. And over the whole palace lies a subtle loosening, as though some knot tied years ago is finally, gently, coming undone. You feel it in the courtyards, where children once played at chariots and war cries, and now speak more softly. You feel it in the armory, where bright weapons sleep in ordered rows, and no urgent hand reaches for them. You feel it in the royal treasury, where gold sits in darkness, doing what gold does best, waiting, looking important, solving almost nothing. The kingdom is well governed. The roads are watched, the offerings are made, the rains have come in season, cattle thrive, judges sit in the halls of law, widows are fed, sacrifices have been offered, the throne has not been neglected, nothing outward is broken, but time is walking through the palace, barefoot, patient. It moves through memory first. The old ones have begun to vanish from the world. Faces that once carried authority like armor have faded into ash, silence, forest paths, prayer. The voices that filled these halls after the war have grown fewer. The generation that knew every insult, every oath, every wrong turn of fate is thinning like smoke after a ritual fire. And from the western sea, from Dvaraka, where Krishna once laughed among his own, a shadow is already moving east, not yet fully spoken, not yet fully believed, but it is coming. You stand in the lamplit hush of Hastinapura and sense what the brothers themselves are beginning to sense. A throne can be won, a kingdom can be ruled, a vow can be fulfilled, and still the world may place its hand on your shoulder at evening and tell you softly that your season is ending. Soon the jewels will be taken off. Soon bark cloth will replace silk. Soon sacred fires will be consigned to water. Grandsons will be blessed. Crowns will be set down. The road north will open under an empty sky. And when they go, they will not go as defeated men. They will go because even victory cannot be held forever. Stay here a little longer in the evening light. Listen to the distant conch. Smell the lamp oil and sandal paste. Feel the stone cooling under the night air. The palace is calm. The kingdom is steady. The heroes are home. And already, quietly, they are preparing to walk away. The kingdom is prosperous. The granaries are full. And still, the air tastes of endings. Morning comes to Hastinapura in layers. First, the broom on stone. Then the splash of water across courtyards. Then the low chant of priests while the eastern sky is still pearl grey. By the time the sun reaches the palace roofs, the floors are washed, the brass lamps polished, and garlands hung fresh over doors that have seen too much. And yet, the freshness never quite wins. You can smell wet earth, jasmine, rice, steaming in royal kitchens, clarified butter warming in bronze pots. It should feel like abundance. It does feel like abundance. But underneath it, there is something thinner, drier, a faint old ash in the mouth, the taste of a festival ground the morning after everyone has gone home. Yudhishthira rules carefully. He does everything a king should do. He hears disputes before breakfast. He receives merchants, envoys, farmers, scholars, wandering ascetics. He checks the roads, remits taxes where harvests failed, sees that widows are fed, sees that the shrines are maintained, sees that the soldiers are paid. Nothing in the machinery of the kingdom is neglected. That is the strange part. Nothing is wrong. And still, the city feels as though it is listening for footsteps that will never return. You see it first in the women at the river. They come before sunrise with brass pots on their hips and white cloth wrapped tight against the cool dawn breeze. They speak softly while filling water. Names drift over the Ganga like flower petals. Sons, husbands, brothers, a grandson who had barely grown a beard, a father who went out with a bow and never came back, a charioteer, a groom, a prince, a potter's boy who carried arrows to the field and was claimed by the same war as kings. No one wails now. That season has passed. The grief has sunk deeper than that. It moves quietly. It folds itself into daily work. It rises when someone sees a pair of sandals still kept by a threshold, or hears a conch shell and remembers another dawn. You walk through the market and feel the same thing. Spice heaps glow red and gold in the morning light. Indigo cloth ripples from wooden beams. Oil crackles in pans. Sweet cakes hiss in ghee. Goats complain as though they have been personally insulted by commerce. A blacksmith hammers a wheel rim back into shape. Children chase each other around a fruit cart until a grandmother catches one by the ear and restores cosmic order. Life goes on very competently. Ancient cities are like that. They do not ask permission to continue. Still, even in the busiest lane, someone lowers their voice when they pass a veteran with an empty sleeve. Someone pauses before buying wedding silk because the bride's older brother should have been there to choose it. Someone glances toward the palace and thinks of the boys who once rode out from those gates shining like the sun. The war is over. The war is never over. Bhima carries the kingdom like a storm forced into a courtyard. He still eats magnificently, of course. Renunciation is for later. For now, if the cooks set down 20 dishes, Bhima will treat that as a polite beginning. The kitchen staff adore him and fear him in equal measure. One poor boy brings him a platter of sweet rice with trembling hands, and Bhima, seeing the terror, laughs so loudly that 3 pigeons flee the rafters. Then he tells the boy to stand still, because if the rice falls, that would be a tragedy of state, The boy nearly faints anyway. Little things like that keep the halls human. But even Bhima is changed. He still trains at dawn. You hear the thud of mace against post, the grunt of effort, the crack of wood under impossible force. Yet when he stops, leaning on the great iron weapon, his breath steaming in the cool early air, there is sometimes no triumph in his face, only memory. Too many names live in his muscles. Arjuna changes differently. He spends long hours with Parikshit, the child who carries the future of their line in his small, warm body. The boy is curious, restless, bright-eyed. He reaches for bowstrings, horse reins, jeweled scabbards, anything forbidden or expensive, which is to say, everything interesting. Arjuna teaches him gently how to stand, how to hold a reed as though it were a shaft, how to listen before moving. Sometimes the child laughs and the sound runs through the palace like clear water. Sometimes Arjuna turns away afterward and becomes very still. Because Abhimanyu should have done this. You feel that absence in the nursery itself, in the folded cloths, in the little anklets, in the way Subhadra watches her grandson, as if sight alone might keep him safe from fate. Nakula keeps the stables in perfect order. Of course he does. If beauty could be organized into a profession, Nakula would have invented it and done it better than anyone else. Horses gleam under his care. Tack is polished. Hooves are checked. Feed is measured properly. Grooms stand straighter when he passes. Even old war mares, scarred and moody and absolutely unwilling to be impressed by royalty, seem to remember manners around him. But the cavalry grounds are quieter than before. Many stalls stand filled by younger animals who never saw Kurukshetra. They toss their heads in sunlit dust, all grace and impatience, while the older horses bear the heavy calm of creatures that have heard too many drums. Sahadeva lives among calculations, stores, calendars, stars. He knows when caravans should arrive, which provinces need grain shifted before the rains, which omens matter, and which are just villagers panicking because an owl looked thoughtful. He keeps the kingdom aligned like a ritual diagram. If Yudhishthira is the heart of rule, Sahadeva is its steady pulse. Yet even he, who sees patterns where others see confusion, cannot untangle time, because time is not an enemy you can outthink. You stand one evening on a high terrace while the heat drains from the day. Below you, the city glows in lamp points. Smoke rises straight up from 1,000 cook fires. Temple bells drift over the rooftops. Somewhere, a flute is being played badly, but with confidence, which is a dangerous combination. The moon lifts itself over the Ganga, pale as polished shell, and Yudhishthira stands there too. He is clothed simply for a king, white, gold only where ceremony insists. His face is calm in the moonlight, but you can feel the weight in him. It is not the old panic that followed the war. That sharp anguish has softened. This is something slower. A king who has learned that justice can be done every day and still not mend what was broken before dawn on a battlefield years ago. He does not complain. He rarely does. But he listens longer than other men. That is his burden. He hears the petition and the sorrow under it. He hears the celebration and the absence inside the music. He hears prosperity and knows how much it cost. Then one season, another thread of the old world loosens. Dhritarashtra can no longer remain in the palace. The blind old king has lived in Yudhishthira's house with Gandhari and Kunti, tended with honor, fed with care, treated as elder, though all his sons are gone. Yudhishthira has served him without bitterness. That is its own quiet miracle. Food is brought, rites are observed. The old king is not cast aside. Still, grief is a room with no windows. Dhritarashtra sits in it year after year. He hears Bhima's tread in the halls and remembers the son who fell to Bhima's mace. He hears the names of provinces and remembers all the sons he once hoped would rule them. Blindness wraps him from birth, but age gives him another darkness too. The darkness of having outlived almost everyone for whom he desired power. Gandhari remains beside him like a banked fire. Her eyes are still covered. Her discipline has not loosened. Her sorrow has not either. She moves through the palace with grave dignity, receiving respect from all. But her presence is austere as winter shade. She has no taste for comfort now. Fine beds, rich food, music in the evening, these drift past her like things meant for another life. And Kunti, Kunti, she has lived through more than most kingdoms. Youth given away to strange fate, sons born in secrecy and danger, forest years, court humiliation, war. The unbearable knowledge about Karna carried too long in her chest. She is grandmother now, elder queen, woman of immense endurance. But endurance is not the same as rest. At last, the old ones decide. They will go to the forest. No one in the palace wants to hear it. Servants weep openly. Subhadra clings to Kunti. The brothers gather like men who have faced armies and discovered they are helpless before an old mother's calm decision. Dhritarashtra speaks of penance, of age, of the need to turn inward at the close of life. Gandhari is already inward. Kunti says little, which somehow makes it harder. There is no scene, no collapse, only certainty. You are there in the courtyard when they leave. The dawn is cool. The stone underfoot still holds the night's softness. Priests murmur blessings. A little wind stirs the ends of garments. The smell of kusa grass, sandalwood, and damp clay rises from ritual vessels placed near the gate. Dhritarashtra walks slowly, supported, austere in bark cloth. Imagine it against skin that once wore linen fine as breath. Rough, dry, stiff at the fold. The old king accepts it without complaint. Gandhari follows. Then Kunti, queen mother of the Pandavas, dressed as a forest ascetic, her hair unadorned. That sight catches in the throat. You feel it, the shock of seeing royalty step into simplicity so complete, it almost looks like disappearance. Yudhishthira bows low. All the brothers do. Bhima, who would rather break a mountain than endure this politely, looks as though rage and helplessness have been tied together inside him. Arjuna's hands stay clasped too long. Nakula and Sahadeva bend like reeds in rain. No one wants to lift their heads and see them farther from the gate than before. Kunti blesses them. She gives them what mothers give at the end. No great speech, only the weight of her gaze, the final touch of hand to head, the insistence that they remain righteous, united, steady. She leaves them with duty, because duty is the language this family has always understood, even when it wounded them. Then they go, no drumbeat, no royal canopy, just old feet on the road and a gathering crowd, trying not to sob too loudly. You watch until dust takes them. After that, Hastinapura grows emptier in a new way. Not because rooms are vacant. Rooms can be refilled, cushions replaced, attendants reassigned. Palace life is very efficient about that sort of thing. But some absences do not stay in their proper chambers. They spread. Kunti's prayer room feels strangely large. Dhritarashtra's hall once heavy with old tension, becomes almost tender in memory. Gandhari's seat remains unoccupied for days because no one can bear to move it too quickly. The palace women still lay flowers where the elders once sat, out of habit, reverence, or simple refusal. You know that feeling if you have ever walked into a house after someone beloved has gone. Everything remains exactly where it should be. That is the problem. Vidura is still there for a time, though even saying he is there feels imprecise. He has become thin as a vow. The wise counselor who once moved through courts like a quiet blade now speaks little, eats almost nothing, and drifts toward stillness. He spends more time in the forest with the old king than in the palace. When he does return, dust clings to his feet, his hair is matted, and his face has that strange brightness some ascetics carry, as if they are already looking at a fire no one else can see. Yudhishthira goes to him. Of course he does. Word comes that Vidura has withdrawn deep into austerity, and Yudhishthira leaves the comforts of court to seek him in the woods. The forest air is different from the cities, cooler under shade, rich with leaf mold and wild neem, alive with insects and hidden birds. Sunlight falls broken through branches, roots twist underfoot. There is no marble there, no parasol, no herald announcing the king, only the crunch of dry leaves and the far cry of peacocks. You follow him in spirit through that green dimness. He finds Vidura standing against a tree, not seated, not speaking, standing like something carved from bark and patience. His body is worn nearly to transparency by penance. His breath is subtle. His eyes rest on Yudhishthira with a depth that no courtly conversation could hold. No long farewell passes between them. It has gone beyond words. Vidura looks at him. Yudhishthira looks back, and in that still forest, with ants moving over roots and a warm wind carrying the smell of crushed tulsi somewhere nearby, something quiet and profound takes place. Vidura lets go. His life, his wisdom, his inner force seem to pass into Yudhishthira like a lamp giving flame to another lamp. Then he is still, very still. Yudhishthira stands there with tears in his eyes and a strange peace around him, as though grief itself has learned to kneel. He does not perform rites for Vidura in the ordinary way. This passing is too inward, too rare, too close to mystery. He returns carrying no ashes, only presence. Back in Hastinapura, the days continue. They always do. The monsoon arrives with a long breath of relief. Dust darkens. Courtyard trees shiver under rain. The gutters laugh. Children run barefoot into puddles until mothers drag them back by the arm. Wet peacocks cry from walls. The whole city smells of soaked earth, mango leaves, damp grain, and river wind. For a few weeks, the place almost feels young again. Then the rains end. The sky clears hard and bright. Time resumes its patient work. Messengers come from the forest with news. Dhritarashtra lives austerely. Gandhari fasts and prays. Kunti serves them both with the steadiness she once gave to palaces and sons. Sanjaya remains nearby, loyal to the end, his old eyes having seen too much and still not allowed rest. Yudhishthira sends offerings, cloth, food, fruits, respect disguised as provisions. He would bring them back if he could, but the road they have chosen does not bend toward return. Years move. Parikshit grows taller. The scars on old soldiers pale. Marriage songs return to some houses. In others, they do not. Then one day, the forest sends final news. A fire has come, not the cheerful household kind that dances in a lamp or crackles under a cooking pot, A wild forest fire, wind-driven, sudden, dry leaves leaping into flame, branches catching, birds bursting upward in frightened clouds. The old ones do not flee. They cannot or do not wish to. Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Kunti remain where they are, facing the end with the same steadiness with which they faced everything else. Sanjaya escapes only because he is sent away. That is how the word reaches the city. You are in the palace when the messenger arrives, dusty, smoke-stained, hoarse with distance. The afternoon heat presses against the walls. Flies hum lazily in shaded corridors. Somewhere, a servant drops a metal tray, and the clang rings out far too loudly. Then silence. News like that changes the texture of air. No one doubts it. No one argues. Fire in the forest leaves little behind. The elders have gone beyond summons, beyond medicine, beyond royal command. Kunti is gone. The word moves. Through the palace, like incense, through cloth. It clings, it settles, it cannot be shaken out. Yudhishthira does what he always does. He grieves by acting correctly. Rites are ordered, waters are offered, priests are summoned, gifts are given, Brahmins are fed. The names of the departed are spoken with reverence. He does not collapse. A whole kingdom leans on his steadiness, and he knows it. But you see him at dusk after the rites. He stands alone near the river terrace where the breeze comes cool over the water. The smell of sesame oil, wet kusa grass, and extinguished lamps lingers from the ceremonies. In the western sky, the light is copper, fading into violet. A heron crosses the river in silence. He has lost his mother twice now, once to destiny, long ago, when life tore childhood from all of them, and now to time. Bhima grieves like weather. He paces, clenches, turns sharp with everyone, then softens suddenly with Parikshit and lifts the boy onto his lap as if protecting one. Small life might answer everything. Arjuna sinks inward. Nakula and Sahadeva grow even quieter than usual, which is saying something. The palace women gather together more often at twilight, not speaking much, simply refusing to be alone with memory. And Hastinapura goes on. That is the strangest sorrow of all. The cooks still grind spices at dawn. Scribes still copy decrees. Farmers still bring cartloads of cane and barley through the gates. A bride still arrives one morning with henna on her hands and bells at her ankles. A temple elephant still steals fruit whenever possible, maintaining its long and honorable commitment to petty crime. The city does not stop, but it sounds different now. Fewer elders in the halls. Fewer voices that remember Bhishma before his vows hardened into legend. Fewer who can recall Pandu's laugh or the swagger of young Duryodhana before envy settled in him like iron. Fewer who can say what Hastinapura was before the game of dice, before exile, before war turned cousins into funeral rites. The age itself is thinning. You can feel it in the evenings most of all. The palace musicians still play. Venas hum. Flutes drift through carved corridors. The drums keep slow time for twilight worship, but the notes seem to travel farther before finding a listener, as if the walls have grown larger, as if silence has eaten a little more space between each sound. Yudhishthira sits in assembly and does not miss a detail, yet his gaze sometimes lingers on nothing visible. Bhima laughs, and the laugh still shakes rafters. Yet afterward, he falls quiet more quickly. Arjuna oils bows, trains boys, inspects horses, speaks kindly to petitioners. Yet a fatigue has entered even his elegance. Nakula and Sahadeva move through duty with perfect grace, but the grace has become autumnal, beautiful. fading at the edges. You stand again in a courtyard at dawn. The stone is cool beneath bare feet. Water has just been thrown across the floor, and the scent of wet limestone rises gently in the morning air. A maid strings fresh marigolds with quick brown fingers. A priest passes carrying smoke from frankincense and sandal. Pigeons coo in the eaves. Somewhere in the women's quarters, a child laughs in sleep, and over all of it hangs that feeling. Not ruin, not despair, something subtler, like old festival garlands still hanging from a beam, their orange petals curled, their thread intact, their fragrance long gone. This is how an age ends in a great city, not with one drumbeat, with thinning, with elders leaving one by one, with chairs remaining empty a little longer each day, with memories becoming the most crowded inhabitants of the palace. And now, from the west, another loss is moving toward them, not rumor anymore, not just a shadow at the edge of thought. Something has happened in Dvaraka. The sea has seen it first. The wind carries it next. Before long, the news will enter Hastinapura, and nothing old will remain standing in quite the same way. And then the messenger comes dusty from the west, carrying the kind of news that changes the color of the sky. He does not enter Hastinapura like a herald with banners. He comes bent with travel. Salt has dried white on his cloak. Road dust cakes his ankles. His lips are split from wind. Even before he speaks, the guards straighten. Something in his face has already said enough. You are in the outer court when they bring him in. The afternoon is hot. Parrots complain in the neem trees. Sunlight lies flat and hard across the flagstones. A brass pot sweats cool water beside a pillar, and no one reaches for it. He asks for Arjuna. Only Arjuna. That alone sends a chill through the hall, because Dvaraka is Krishna's city. And if a man comes from Dvaraka, looking as though the sea itself spat him out, asking for Arjuna with that torn breath and those empty hands, then everyone's heart arrives at the same dreadful thought at once. Not yet spoken, already known. Arjuna comes quickly. He had been in the practice ground, they say, though he trains boys more than himself now. He arrives with a leather wrist guard still tied on, hair loosened by heat, eyes sharp in a face no longer young. The messenger bows low and gives him the news in fragments, because that is how disaster travels, never cleanly, never with mercy. There had been ruin among the Yadavas, a drunken quarrel, old curses ripening at last, kin turning upon kin beside the sea, Balarama gone, Krishna gone, Dvaraka waiting under the hand of fate. The words fall into the room like stones into deep water. No one speaks. You can hear, absurdly, a fly circling the rim of the water pot. Arjuna does not sway. He does not cry out. He stands very still, and that stillness is somehow worse. The kind of stillness that comes when the heart has been struck so hard, it forgets the next beat. Then he turns. He goes first to Yudhishthira. There is no need for long explanation. He says enough. Krishna has left the earth. The Yadavas have destroyed one another. He must go west at once. Bhima's big hand closes around the arm of his chair until the wood complains. Nakula lowers his eyes. Sahadeva, who so often seems to know sadness before it arrives, looks as if he has just heard the final line of a song he has dreaded for years. And Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira closes his eyes. That is all. For a moment, that is all. The hall smells suddenly of hot stone and lamp smoke and old grief returning in a familiar robe. Because Krishna was not just an ally, he was the one bright, laughing certainty in a world of collapsing certainties. He walked into their disasters as if he had already measured them, as if he had found them survivable. The one whose chariots arrived when hope did not. The one who joked in kitchens, counseled in palaces, stood in embassies, broke pride with a smile, and held the entire age together with fingers that made it look easy. And now those fingers have opened. Now he is gone. You feel it before anyone names it, a loosening, as if some unseen knot in the world has come undone. Preparations begin at once. Arjuna will leave before dawn. There is no ceremony to it, only haste. Horses rubbed down, wheels checked, water skins filled, quivers counted, fine cloth packed away in favor of road-stained practicality. The palace servants move with red eyes and disciplined hands. In the women's quarters, Subhadra hears before anyone dares dress it gently. Krishna was her brother. Arjuna steps slow as he reaches her chamber. But the news is already there ahead of him, as grief always is. You can smell jasmine oil, cooling rice, and the faint iron tang of tears. The women inside sit motionless, as if movement itself might make the truth more solid. He tells her he must go. He tells her he will bring back whoever remains. A promise made because promises are all that men have when the sea has already taken the rest. Before dawn, the city gates open. Arjuna rides west. The sky is pearl grey. The air still carries the night's mercy. Wheels hum over packed earth. Horses breathe steam into the half-light. Behind him, Hastinapura watches another beloved figure diminish into distance. You ride with him in that long grief-struck haste, past fields silver with early dew, past roadside shrines blackened by ghee lamps and smoke, past rivers where washerwomen pause, cloth dripping from their hands, to stare at the royal convoy passing too quickly for comfort. The farther west he goes, the drier the air becomes. The smell changes, less river, more dust. Then, eventually faintly, salt. Days pass, the roads grow stranger. Trade caravans thin. Villages huddle under the sun with doors half closed, as if bad news has walked there first, and everyone hopes not to be noticed by it. Men at wells speak in low voices. Women drawing water stop and press wet hands to their mouths when they hear the name Dvaraka. No one has one clear account. Everyone has a piece. There was drinking, there were harsh words, there was a curse from long ago, ripening like poison fruit. There were reeds by the shore that hardened in their hands like iron. There was no stopping it. Imagine that. The Yadavas, who had survived armies, kings, sieges, and impossible odds, undone on a strip of shining coast by their own hands, a clan too strong for enemies, and therefore left alone with itself. That is one of the cruel jokes of the world. Arjuna hears all this and urges the horses faster. He barely eats. Dust gathers in the lines of his face. His hands remain steady on the reins, but not light. They grip too hard. Sleep comes in scraps. Whenever he closes his eyes, he sees Krishna as he was the last time. Alive, smiling, capable of arriving anywhere. Alive is a stubborn habit of memory. It takes time to break. At last, the western sea appears, not gently. You crest a rise, and there it is, broad, hard, glittering under the sun like hammered metal. The wind strikes first, wet and salty, carrying kelp, fish, and the clean, sharp smell of open water. Gulls wheel and cry overhead. Palm fronds clatter against one another like dry hands. And beyond, Dvaraka, or what remains of it. The city still stands when Arjuna arrives, but the standing has changed. You feel it before anyone says a word. You can feel it instantly. This is not a living capital in full breath. This is a place holding itself upright out of habit. The avenues are too quiet. Courtyards lie unswept. Door hangings move in the sea wind without anyone coming to lift them. The great houses of the Vrishnis and Andhakas stand with open doors and no laughter inside. Gold still gleams. Pillars still rise. Flags still stir from the towers. But the pulse is gone. In some places, women sit on thresholds with hair unbound. In others, old men stare toward the shore as if by looking long. Enough, they might reverse what happened there. The smell of salt is everywhere. So is smoke from funeral fires. Arjuna goes first where he must, to Krishna's father, Vasudeva. The old man has been waiting in a palace gone dim, the lamps burning even in daylight. The air inside is thick with sandal paste, medicated oils, and the sour edge of sorrow kept too long indoors. Servants walk softly. No one announces Arjuna loudly. Loudness would be obscene here. Vasudeva sees him and breaks. He had been holding himself together on old kingly discipline, on habit, on sheer exhausted dignity. But Arjuna is family. Arjuna is the bridge to those who loved Krishna elsewhere. One look at him and the old grief rushes out. He tells Arjuna all of it, how the curse ripened, how pride and drink and fate met on the seashore, how the Yadava heroes struck one another down, how Balarama departed in stillness, how Krishna, after the ruin, went into the forest alone, how the end came, not with drums, not with a host of gods split visibly across the sky, quietly, a hunter's arrow, a resting lord, the close of an age hidden in a patch of wild earth. You sit in that chamber with Arjuna as he listens. Outside, the surf keeps breaking. Inside, every sound seems small and helpless beside what has been said. Vasudeva asks Arjuna to do what remains: protect the women, gather the survivors, perform the final rites. Because even in houses of gods and heroes, after catastrophe, someone must still count the living, light the fires, fetch the water, and decide which road is safest. Fate can be grand. Its aftermath is terribly practical. Arjuna bows his head and takes the burden. He has carried heavier, at least he thinks he has. He goes to the shore. There, where the sea wind whips white spray across dark stone, the remnants of the Yadava race lie scattered through memory, ash and silence. Funeral fires send smoke up in long grey ribbons. Priests chant over and over, their voices nearly lost to the surf. Women weep with the exhausted rhythm of those who have passed beyond shock into repetition. The air tastes of salt and smoke and grief. Arjuna performs what must be performed, for Krishna, for Balarama, for the fallen of that terrible shore. He pours water with hands that once released arrows faster than thought. He offers sesame, fire, prayer, remembrance. He watches flames bend in the sea wind. And for perhaps the first time in all his long, bright life, he feels not merely sorrow, but abandonment by the age itself. Because Krishna is gone, yes, but more than Krishna, something that moved through Krishna, something that moved through him too. A current, a favor, a brightness. You know the feeling when a room is lit from somewhere you cannot see, and then suddenly that light is gone and all the objects remain exactly where they were, yet nothing looks trustworthy anymore. That. Days continue. The rites end. The old King Vasudeva, worn hollow by loss, cannot endure much longer. He leaves the world soon after, and Arjuna performs those rites as well. One pyre after another, one farewell after another. Sand underfoot, smoke in the hair, priests chanting until their voices rasp. Even grief gets tired. Then the sea gives its own warning. There are whispers first. The city will not stand long. Krishna had once commanded the sea to hold back for Dvaraka. Now that command has ended. The waters are waiting like patient creditors. Arjuna gathers the survivors, women of the royal houses, children, the old, a few attendants and guards. Not a proud procession now, more like the remains of a storm being loaded onto carts. Jewel boxes hastily wrapped in cloth, sacred images bundled with blankets, mothers clutching children still too young to understand why everyone's face has changed. A parrot cage covered with a shawl. Someone insists on bringing copper cooking pots. Good, wise, kingdom's end. But someone still has to boil lentils. There is a practical holiness to this chaos. Arjuna organizes routes, wagons, protection, water. He appoints drivers. He calms the frightened. He sends scouts ahead. He moves through the ruined city like a man trying to stitch cloth already dissolving in his hands. Before they leave, he looks back. The towers of Dvaraka blaze in late light. The sea beyond them is strangely calm, too calm. You can smell brine, hot stone, and the faint sweetness of crushed champa flowers blown from some abandoned courtyard tree. Then the caravan begins. The wheels roll eastward. Children cry, then sleep. Oxen grunt into their harnesses. Women murmur prayers under their breath. The road out of Dvaraka fills with the long, tired sound of departure. Behind them, fate comes on water. It happens as they gain distance. A tremor, then a sound like 100 drums muffled under earth, then cries from those who look back first. Arjuna turns. From the road, you can see the sea advancing where streets had been, white water pouring through gateways, spray exploding against palace walls, towers standing one moment, swallowed in the next. Dvaraka sinking, not like a thing destroyed in rage, but like a lamp being lowered slowly beneath dark water. City of Krishna, city of sea wind and laughter and impossible rescues. Gone, just like that. The survivors wail. Some collapse on the roadside. Others stretch their hands toward the west, as if distance might still be crossed by longing. Arjuna can only stand and watch. The wind lashes his garments against his legs. Salt dries on his skin. And there, with the drowned city fading behind him, he understands what Yudhishthira will soon understand too. Nothing remains because it deserves to remain. Not cities, not clans, not even the house where Krishna laughed. The caravan goes on. What else can it do? Road follows road. The company moves through scrubland, across dry tracts and riverbeds, through settlements where people stare at the noble women of Dvaraka with a kind of frightened reverence. News runs ahead. This is Arjuna, they whisper. This is Krishna's kin. This is what is left. At first, his presence is enough. Bandits see the royal standards and think better of testing them. Village chiefs offer grain and water. Even the rougher men by the roadside take one look at Gandiva on Arjuna's shoulder and remember their manners. But time is moving quickly now. Too quickly. They enter a harsher country, flat stretches, thin shade, wind carrying dust into the eyes. The skin feels tight with heat by midday, then chilled by night. Wheels stick in ruts. Children grow feverish. The old complain softly from the carts. A woman who once wore only silk now walks ankle-deep through mud to to push a wagon free. Another who grew up amid marble halls learns exactly how stubborn a mule can be when the day is hot. Renunciation is one thing. Convincing an irritated animal to move is a separate spiritual discipline. Arjuna stays alert. He rides ahead, circles back, checks the flanks. Yet inside him, something is wrong. Not pain, not illness, a dimming. He reaches for the old readiness and finds delay. He reaches for confidence and finds memory of confidence. Like a singer who opens his mouth and discovers the song still exists, but not in his throat. The attack comes when the caravan is stretched thin, a dusty afternoon, the kind where the horizon shimmers, and even the crows seem too tired to argue. The smell is baked earth, sweat, leather, and the sharp sourness of anxious animals. The guards are weary. The women are packed close in the carts. The children whimper under cloth awnings. Then raiders appear, not great warriors, not kings in shining armor, cattle lifters, opportunists, rough men from the borderlands who see a long, vulnerable train, heavy with wealth and light with defenders, men who would once have fled before Arjuna's name alone. They come shouting fast and ugly in their confidence. Arjuna stands in the chariot. At once, the old reflex surges. Gandiva is in his hand. He draws, and then the terror of it. The bow feels heavy, not impossible, but heavy in a way it never was. The string bites harder into his fingers. The mantras he has always known, the shining invocations that once answered like trained hawks, do not come cleanly. He reaches into memory and finds the syllables blurred. The divine weapons remain where they are, far off, silent, as if they belong to another life and another man. For a heartbeat, he cannot believe it. This is Arjuna. This hand won Draupadi. This hand fought at Kurukshetra. This hand held steady while Krishna drove through storms of arrows. This hand should know what to do, but the age has shifted under him. He looses shafts. Some find their marks, some do not. He fights fiercely. He is still Arjuna. Even diminished, he is no common fighter. Several raiders fall back. Some are struck down. For a little while, sheer training, rage, and habit hold the line. But not as before. Not like the old days when one warrior could seem like a moving wall of fire. The raiders feel it. They feel, with that low animal cunning men have in danger, that the great wheel has turned and the legendary hand is no longer invincible. And once such men feel weakness, they multiply. They rush the flanks. Carts break formation. Oxen bellow. Women cry out. Dust rises in choking sheets. You can barely see for a moment, only hear it. Wheels grinding, men shouting, children sobbing, arrows striking wood, Arjuna calling commands into the confusion. He tries again to summon the celestial force that would once have scattered them like leaves. Nothing, or almost nothing. A sputter where there should have been thunder. A lamp wick, not lightning. Panic spreads through the caravan. Jewels are snatched. Chests split open. Some of the women of the Yadava houses are dragged away despite Arjuna's desperate defense. He pursues, strikes down some of the attackers, saves who he can. But not all. Not all. That is the wound, not defeat in battle. This insufficiency. He, who had once stood against armies, cannot fully protect a caravan of grieving survivors from rough men with clubs and greedy hands. At last, the raiders scatter with what they have taken. Dust settles slowly. The road lies stunned in the heat. A wheel spins uselessly on a broken axle. One child is still crying with the mechanical persistence of utter fright. Arjuna stands among the wreckage with Gandiva in his hand, breathing hard. The silence after is worse than the clash, because now there is room to understand. His power has gone, or rather, it has gone where Krishna has gone. Not all of it. He still stands, he still breathes, he still fights better than almost any man alive. But the God-touched certainty, the effortless answering of weapon to will, the terrible radiance that once made enemies tremble before they came near, that has withdrawn. You are there in the dry wind when he realizes it. The sun is merciless. Dust clings to sweat on his face. His fingers, once so sure, tremble slightly as he lowers the bow. He is not merely grieving Krishna now. He is grieving the Arjuna who existed in Krishna's presence. The rest of the journey becomes slower, sadder, more careful. Arjuna gets the survivors onward as best he can. He leaves some in safer cities and fortified settlements. He places Krishna's family where protection can still be arranged. He divides responsibilities, distributes what remains, and does not allow himself the luxury of collapse. Duty is rude that way. It waits patiently until your heart breaks, then hands you a list. When at last he turns back toward Hastinapura, he is carrying less than he promised. Fewer people, less wealth, and truth heavy as iron. The road home feels longer than the road west. Monsoon clouds gather in places, then break apart without raining. Fields blur by. Temple bells sound from evening villages. Cooking smoke rises blue at dusk. Travelers pass with baskets of limes, bundles of grass, jars of curd balanced on hips. Ordinary life continues with offensive competence. Somewhere, a man argues over goat prices while Arjuna rides past, having watched an age drown. That is the world's habit. It keeps going. By the time he reaches Hastinapura, the city has already sensed him. Not his coming, his condition. There is a way a horse enters a gate after bad news. There is a way guards lower their eyes. There is a way servants stop pretending this might still be manageable. You stand in the palace court again. Evening now. Lamps are being lit one by one. The smell of sesame oil and wick smoke thickens in the air. A peacock calls from a garden wall. Somewhere, metal vessels ring faintly as they are, stacked after washing. Arjuna dismounts. No triumph, no rescued world behind him. Just weariness, dust, and the face of a man who has seen the lamp of the age go out. His brothers gather. Yudhishthira sees him and knows at once that the grief is larger than one death, even Krishna's. This is not simply mourning. This is ending. Arjuna tells them all of it. The destruction of the Yadavas, Balarama's departure, Krishna in the forest, Vasudeva gone, Dvaraka claimed by the sea, the attack on the road, the failure of his weapons, the mantra slipping from memory like water through open fingers. He says, in his own way, what is hardest to say? That the strength by which he once shook the earth no longer answers when called. No one interrupts. Bhima's great chest rises and falls once, deeply. Nakula looks toward the floor, where lamplight gathers in gold pools on the stone. Sahadeva closes his eyes, as if some final tally has at last been completed. And Yudhishthira listens. The evening deepens around them. The hall is quiet enough to hear the crackle of lamp flames. Then Yudhishthira understands. Krishna has departed. Arjuna's divine force has ebbed. Dvaraka has sunk. The old heroes are thinning. The age itself is withdrawing from them. There are moments when a king must decide. And there are moments when the decision has already been made somewhere deeper, and the king's only task is to bow to it with grace. This is one of those moments. You can feel it in the air before he speaks. The palace seems to listen. The pillars, the banners, the servants hidden behind carved screens, even the night outside, warm and black and full of crickets. The time for ruling is ending, not because the kingdom is broken, because they are, because the hand that held them through ruin has opened, because no throne, however polished, can argue with time forever. Krishna has left the earth, and with him, the bright permission that allowed these men to remain larger than ordinary life. Now they are old. Now they are tired. Now the world is asking for one final thing from them. Not conquest, not endurance, release. And in that lamplit hall, with sea salt grief still clinging to Arjuna's cloak, though he has ridden far from the coast, the Pandavas begin to understand that their own road is waiting. The palace is quiet. Outside, the night wind moves through the courtyards and stirs the faded garlands hanging from the beams. Somewhere a conch sounds for evening worship. Long, low, then gone. Once Krishna is gone, the palace no longer feels permanent. By dawn, the decision has been made. The first light comes pale over Hastinapura. Not golden, not triumphant, just pale, thin and tired, sliding across the palace roofs and the white stone courtyards where yesterday's flower petals have gone limp in the night, damp. You are there when the household wakes. Servants move softly, as if someone important is sleeping and must not be disturbed. But no one is sleeping. The whole palace has that strained stillness of people who have cried in private and washed their faces before sunrise. In Yudhishthira's chamber, the lamps are still burning low. Their smell hangs in the air. Ghee, old smoke, and sandalwood gone faint. Arjuna sits bent forward, travel dust still in the folds of his cloak. Bhima is standing because he does not know what else to do with a body like his when grief has nowhere to strike. Nakula and Sahadeva have the same look they had as boys when they already understood what was coming and could not stop it. Draupadi is very still. Yudhishthira rises, that is all. He rises and somehow the room changes around him. The decision settles into the walls. No one asks what he means before he speaks. They already know. He tells them they will not remain. Krishna has gone. The Yadavas have passed from the earth. Time has taken those who stood beside them in every great turning. Their own work is finished. The kingdom must pass to younger hands. No one argues. That is the sharpest part. Once, these brothers could have argued over a turn of phrase, a battle plan, a horse, a meal, an insult remembered for 12 years. Bhima especially. Bhima could disagree with weather. Yet now he only drops his chin once, heavily, as if accepting a mace blow no one else can see. The morning air is cool against the skin for a little while. You can feel it before the heat comes up from the courtyards. Somewhere in the women's quarters, a bronze pot rings against stone. A peacock cries from the garden wall. Life, insultingly, goes on making ordinary sounds. The king sends for the elders of the household, for priests, for counselors, for Yuyutsu, for Kripa, for Subhadra, for the women of the family, for the chamberlains who keep the keys and inventories and seal rings and grain records and all the little things that make a kingdom continue breathing. A kingdom is not just crowns and speeches. It is oil tallies, elephant fodder, tax ledgers, irrigation channels, temple lamps, boundary stones, which villages owe rice and which owe cotton, Which old soldier's widow still receives a monthly measure of barley? Leaving properly takes as much work as ruling. By mid-morning, the hall of audience is full. The polished floor is cool where the shadows hold. Above, long banners stir in the slow movement of fans. The smell is layered. Incense from the shrines, jasmine from the women's hair, old wood, hot metal from armor clasps, and the faint dust of many sandals entering in haste. You stand near a carved pillar and watch faces change as the news spreads from mouth to ear. First disbelief, then fear, then the kind of grief that makes people instinctively fold their hands, as if reverence might somehow keep a thing from happening. Yudhishthira does not dress like a man trying to soften bad news. He comes in simple white, without festival ornaments, without the heavy confidence of kingship. The crown is still his, but already it looks like something sitting on him, rather than belonging to him. Bhima comes beside him, wearing gold on his arms and a face like thunder trapped indoors. Arjuna's eyes are older than yesterday. Nakula and Sahadeva are composed in the careful way of men holding a vessel filled to the edge. Draupadi enters last. Silk whispers around her ankles. Jewels burn at her throat and wrists, and in the parting of her dark hair. She is queen still, for a little longer. The announcement falls over the court like a monsoon sheet. Yudhishthira tells them Parikshit, son of Abhimanyu's line, will rule the Kuru throne. Vajra will be established among the surviving Yadavas. Yuyutsu, who walked the narrow path between blood and righteousness and somehow remained standing, will guard the realm until the boy grows fully into kingship. Kripa, old teacher, who has seen too much and kept breathing anyway, will guide the young king. The words are measured, calm. The hall is not. A sound moves through it. Not one sound, but many. Sharp breaths, muffled crying, a stifled moan from somewhere among the women. The rustle of silk as people shift and bow and struggle not to break apart in front of their departing rulers. You can smell tears sometimes, salty and warm in the close air. Subhadra comes forward first. She has lost brother, husband's kin, son, city, age. There are women who would have collapsed years ago beneath less sorrow. She does not collapse. She stands before Yudhishthira and hears him place the future in her hands as much as in Parikshit's. He tells her the boy must be protected. The line must endure. Her heart must stay turned toward righteousness. Children learn the shape of the world from the faces bent over them. She listens with that terrible stillness grief gives the strong. Then she places a hand on Parikshit's head. The child is not really a child anymore, not in the way the word usually means. War aged everyone around him before he was old enough to understand why. Still, beside these men, he looks young enough to be swallowed by the throne. You see him trying to stand very straight. You also see his fingers worrying the edge of his sash. Poor boy. One day you are being corrected on posture and ceremonial greetings. The next day, the greatest men in the world are handing you an empire and walking toward the mountains. Priests begin the rites of transfer. Conch shells sound, but softly, almost reluctantly, as if even they know this is no victory procession. Sacred fires are fed. Clarified butter hisses as it strikes flame. Mantras rise into the rafters, old syllables steady as river water. The smoke lifts blue and fragrant, curling around gold pillars and painted beams. The smell catches in your throat, ghee, kusa grass, resin, warm ash. Parikshit is bathed, anointed, seated, blessed. Drops of water from sacred rivers touch his brow. Sandal paste cools his skin. Rice grains cling to the wet mark. Garlands are laid across his shoulders. Elders murmur blessings for long life, sharp judgment, fertile seasons, obedient allies, strong horses, healthy heirs, and enough patience to survive listening to petitions all day. No one ever blesses a king with fewer petitions. That would be the true miracle. Yudhishthira places the emblems of rule where they belong. There is a parasol, white as cloud, a fly whisk with a silver handle, a seal ring, a sword, ceremonial and bright. The throne itself waits like a patient beast. Parikshit sits upon it at last, and the hall bows. The sound of many foreheads touching stone is soft, like rain beginning far away. Yet, even now, while the rites continue, another ceremony is already gathering in the inner chambers. Renunciation does not arrive all at once. First, the kingdom is handed onward. Then the body must be told. The brothers return to their private rooms to lay down what remains. You go with them through passages dim after the blaze of the court. Painted walls flicker in lamplight. Servants press themselves flat against doorways, weeping openly now. Some reach for the hems of garments, as if touch might delay departure. Bhima stops once when an old kitchen servant falls at his feet. This woman fed him through years of return and rebuilding. She has probably spent half her life watching him empty platters that would have supported 3 lesser men and then ask with complete sincerity whether there might be a little more rice. She clutches his ankles and sobs so hard she can barely speak. Bhima, who has frightened kings and crushed warriors, looks stricken. Very gently, absurdly gently, he bends and lifts her up. He pats her shoulder once, like a man trying to calm a storm with a palm leaf. He tells her enough. Enough now. Care for the kitchens. Feed the boy king well. Then he has to turn away quickly, because if Bhima stays to comfort one crying servant, the whole palace will drown in tears before noon. In Draupadi's chamber, the women gather. No one rushes this part. It happens piece by piece, with the quiet intimacy of evening ritual, except it is morning and everyone's chest hurts. A maid removes the queen's crown first. That is the unbearable one. It leaves a pale band across her forehead, where the weight has long rested. Then the earrings, the layered necklaces, the jeweled girdle, bangles, rings, anklets. Each piece makes its own small sound as it is placed into lined trays, metal on metal, gems touching gold, a bright, delicate clinking that seems much too pretty for such a sorrowful task. You hear every single one. Silk is folded away. In its place comes bark cloth and rough fabric fit for the forest. It is coarse under the hand, dry, unyielding, nothing of the court in it, no cool shimmer, no softness, no whispering luxury. When Draupadi takes it up, even the women helping her begin to cry again. She does not. Her face is calm, but it is the calm of someone walking barefoot over hot stone without flinching. The scent in the room changes as the ornaments disappear. Less perfume, less lotus oil, more plain linen, lamp smoke, and the clean, faint bitterness of bark. In another chamber, Nakula loosens the ornaments that have suited him perhaps too well all his life. No one wore beauty as naturally as Nakula. Even in exile, he somehow managed to look like a prince who had merely chosen a more rustic setting. Now he removes necklaces from his throat, armlets from smooth arms, silk from elegant shoulders. His attendants are wrecked by it. Nakula himself remains gracious, even smiling once. When a young servant gets so overwhelmed, she tries to bow while carrying 3 jewelry boxes and nearly drops one. He catches it before it hits the floor, even at the end, still graceful. Sahadeva is quieter. He thanks everyone who helps him, every single one. The old valet with shaking hands, the boy who brings folded bark garments and cannot stop wiping his eyes, the steward who presents the sandals they will not wear for long. Sahadeva's voice is low, steady. It makes the room worse. Kindness often does. Arjuna unfastens his ornaments with the stiffness of a man already living partly elsewhere. He has returned Gandiva to the waters in his heart long before his hands will do it on the road. You can see it. The warrior's splendor has dimmed, not shamefully, just truly. He removes jeweled clasps and heavy silk and stands for a moment in plain cloth, thinner than legend, older than memory allows. The smell of sea wind seems still trapped in his hair. And then there is Bhima. Oh, Bhima. If ever there was a man built to make renunciation look like a personal insult, it is Bhima standing in a room full of folded silks, polished weapons, carved chests, and untouched trays of fruit. He glares at the bark garment as if it has arrived specifically to offend him. The bark garment, to be fair, is doing an excellent job. It is scratchy, it is ugly, it has none of the dignity of proper royal cloth. It looks like something a tree lost in an argument. One attendant, poor soul, tries to help drape it correctly and gets such a look of offended confusion from Bhima that he nearly backs into a lamp. But Bhima does not refuse. That matters. He strips off gold armlets, removes rings from fingers thick as clubs, hands over silk, gives up the sword belt, the ornaments, the signs of appetite and force and royal plenty. His big chest rises once with a breath that is almost a growl. Then he stands there in bark cloth, still enormous, still unmistakably Bhima. Now just looking like a forest ascetic who could uproot a sal tree because it annoyed him. The day grows hotter. By afternoon, the palace stones have warmed underfoot. The smell of sun on lime plaster drifts in from the courtyards. Pigeons shuffle along the high ledges. Temple bells mark the hours, one after another, indifferent and precise. Yudhishthira performs the last duties. There are gifts to be given: cows, gold, fine cloth, grain, jewels, horses, food for Brahmins, mendicants, widows, retainers, temple servants, the poor who gather outside the palace gates once word spreads through the city like fire through dry grass. The line stretches long. You can stand near the outer courtyard and watch Hastinapura come to receive its final generosity from the hands that ruled it. Bent old men, mothers holding children on their hips, veterans with scarred brows, palace workers trying not to cry in front of everyone, priests with water pots, merchants stunned into silence for once. Even the dogs at the gate seem to know something solemn is happening and weave quietly between ankles without their usual quarrels. The air is thick with dust, incense, hot grain, sweating cattle, marigolds crushed under sandals. Yudhishthira gives without hesitation. Bhima gives as if trying to finish a battle quickly. Arjuna gives absently, with tenderness. Nakula speaks gently to the horsemasters receiving royal animals for transfer. Sahadeva checks details one last time because someone has to make sure the correct parcels go to the correct hands, and kings, even renouncing kings, are surrounded by people who would absolutely mislabel 3 sacks and lose a horse if not supervised. Draupadi gives away ornaments she has just removed. That cuts deepest. Women who served her for years received bracelets, earrings, chains, fabrics, small carved boxes of ointment, mirrors with silver backs, combs of ivory and wood. They take them with shaking hands and tears on their cheeks. These are gifts, yes. They are also final touches. Proof that the queen's hands rested on these things, that she remembered who had dressed her hair, who had brought her lamps, who had sat awake outside her doors through fever and grief and festivals and bad dreams. Evening approaches with the smell of cooking fires all across the city. That smell always makes a place feel inhabited, lentils thickening in clay pots, rice steaming, ghee warming, bread blistering on griddles, smoke drifting blue over rooftops. For one of the last times, the palace kitchens prepare a meal for the Pandavas as royals. It is not extravagant. No one has the heart for extravagance, but it is careful. Familiar dishes, things they have eaten through years of rule. Rice fragrant with cumin, soft vegetables, thick curds, warm milk, flatbreads brushed with ghee. Bhima sits before the meal and does not reach first. That is when some of the servants begin quietly weeping again. He notices, of course he notices, and for one brief moment, there is a flicker in him, almost like embarrassment. Imagine being the mighty Bhima and discovering your dinner habits have become part of the emotional structure of the kingdom. He eats, not greedily, reverently, as if taking leave not only of food, but of all the earthly ease wrapped inside it. Steam rising in lamplight, brass vessels warm to the touch, the comfort of being expected at a table. Night falls. The moon lifts over the palace roofs. White light lies across terraces and catches the edges of railings. Oil lamps bloom in rows along corridors. The great halls glow honey-colored and hollow. This is the last royal night. You walk through it, past the armory where weapons rest in ordered ranks, past the music room where no one plays, past the nursery chambers where Parikshit once slept beneath protective charms, past shrines where flowers wilt in silver bowls, past servants asleep from exhaustion in corners, or pretending to sleep because wakefulness hurts too much. In the inner shrine, the Pandavas gather for final worship. The air is thick with incense and warm from enclosed lamps. Bells ring softly. Offerings are made. Foreheads touch the ground. Their shadows bow and tremble on stone walls blackened by generations of flame. Then comes the last severing. Their sacred fires, maintained through the obligations of household life and kingship, are carried out and consigned to water. You follow the procession into the night. The riverbank lies under moonlight, pale and wide. The Ganga moves with its ancient hush, carrying silver ripples and the smell of wet earth, river mud, lotus roots, cool reeds. Crickets sing in the grasses. A priest chants. The flames flicker in the dark, reflected in copper vessels. One by one, the fires are given back, not extinguished in anger, not abandoned, released. The smoke lifts into the night air and vanishes. That is what this whole day has been. Not collapse, release. Back in the palace, they do not sleep much. Who could? There are final blessings to give. Parikshit comes to them again, now crowned, trying very hard to look like someone prepared for the weight pressing toward him. Yudhishthira draws him close and places both hands on his head. The old king blesses him with steadiness, with truthfulness, with strength enough to hear what is unpleasant, and wisdom enough not to punish the messenger for it. He reminds the young ruler that a kingdom is protected not by pride, but by attention. Bhima embraces the boy so firmly, Parikshit nearly disappears. Arjuna's hand lingers on his grandson's shoulder. Nakula and Sahadeva bless him with gentleness. Draupadi places her palm against his cheek for a moment, and there is all the love of the broken line in that touch. Then they go to Subhadra. No grand speeches now. Those belong to daytime. Night keeps only the truest things. Hands clasp hands, heads bow together. Tears are not hidden anymore. In corridor after corridor, servants line the walls as the 5 brothers and Draupadi pass. Some hold lamps, some hold trays of flowers no one remembers to scatter. Some simply fold their hands and cry. You can hear the sound of bangles trembling on wrists, the catch of breath, the soft slap of bare feet on polished floors, the far-off call of the night watch on the walls. And at last, before dawn returns, the royal ornaments are all packed away. Crowns in chests, silks folded, jewels sealed, signet rings transferred. What remains are 6 figures in bark and plain cloth, thinner somehow without splendor, though more luminous for it. They look less like rulers now, more like pilgrims already halfway gone. The eastern sky begins to pale again. Another day, but not a palace day, not a king's day. In the courtyards below, the city is stirring. Someone sweeps stone steps. A temple conch sounds the first call to worship. Cows low in their sheds. The scent of damp earth rises where water has been thrown to settle dust. You stand at the edge of the threshold with everyone else and feel it. The hush before leaving. The strange emptiness around objects that have just ceased to matter. The ache of seeing great people become simple on purpose. Yudhishthira does not look back at the throne room. Bhima looks once at the kitchens, naturally. Arjuna lifts his face toward the paling sky, as if listening for something only he might hear. Nakula and Sahadeva stand close together. Draupadi's bark garment moves slightly in the dawn breeze. Then, with the kingdom placed behind them and ahead of them, nothing but road, dust, river, stone, and whatever remains for the old to learn at the end of power, they step forward, and Hastinapura begins to weep. No chariot carries them now. The road begins at the gate, and every step after that belongs to farewell. At first, the sound is all weeping. It rolls after them from the city streets like monsoon water down stone steps. Women on balconies press their palms together. Old men lean on staffs and call blessings with shaking voices. Children stare, half frightened, half thrilled, because legends are easier to admire when they wear crowns, and much stranger when they walk barefoot into dust. You stand near the outer gate as they pass, and the smell changes at once. Inside the palace, there had been sandalwood, lamp smoke, wet lotus, polished cedar. Here it is road dust, cattle, crushed neem leaves, morning cook fires, the sharp sweetness of dung drying in the sun. Real earth, common earth, the kind that does not care who ruled yesterday. Yudhishthira goes first, not in royal pace now. No measured kingly stride for courtly effect. Just the even, steady walk of a man who has decided something so fully that the body obeys before the mind has finished grieving. Bhima follows like a storm cloud, forced into discipline. Arjuna's shoulders are lighter without armor, but age has settled there all the same. Nakula and Sahadeva move quietly, graceful even in bark cloth, which is honestly irritating. Some people can wear tree bark and still look elegant. Very unfair. Draupadi walks among them, with her hair bound simply, No jewels, no silk, only the old fire in her face turned inward now. And behind them, padding in patient silence, comes the dog. No one invites him, no one sends him away. He just appears as if the road itself has taken shape and grown 4 legs. His ribs show a little. His coat is dusty, a mix of earth brown and ash. He keeps a respectful distance at first, trotting behind Bhima, then drifting near Sahadeva, then circling back again. A palace dog would have known better than to choose this company. No cooks, no scraps, no cushions. This one chooses anyway. The city follows as far as it can. There are priests with wet eyes and trembling chants. Servants who once carried pitchers and fly whisks now carry nothing but their own sorrow. There are soldiers in old scarred breastplates, embarrassed by tears and losing the battle against them. Subhadra stands far back under a pale veil. Parikshit, still young, is held by duty already, not by arms. He watches his elders grow smaller on the road and does not run after them. That is how kingdoms continue, with someone staying and someone leaving. The morning grows hotter. The cries from Hastinapura begin to thin. One by one, the voices fall behind. A final wail rises near the gatehouse. Then, even that is lost in distance, taken by wind over dry fields. And suddenly, there is only the sound of feet. 6 pairs of human feet. 1 set of paws. Dust lifting and settling. The road unwinding north and east and south and west, because they do not yet climb toward the mountains. First, they must move through the whole breadth of the land, as if taking leave not only of a throne, but of Bharatavarsha itself. By midday, the sun is hard and white. Heat trembles above the road. The bark garments that looked so solemn at dawn are already scratching like punishment. You can almost feel it with them, the rough fiber against shoulders, the sting of sweat caught under seams that are barely seams at all. Royal silks may ruin a man's character, but they are soft. Bark cloth has no interest in your comfort. Bhima discovers this almost immediately. He says little, but his face tells the whole tale. A warrior who once slept on forest ground without complaint now keeps tugging at the edge of his garment as if personally betrayed by trees. Arjuna notices and almost smiles. Sahadeva notices and definitely does not smile because Sahadeva has always approached discomfort as if it were a philosophical argument he can win by standing straighter. By the second halt, Bhima has also discovered the other surprise of renunciation. No one announces meals, no conch, no steward, no discreet line of servants appearing with brass vessels and excellent timing. When you renounce the world does not continue sending lunch after you out of respect for past accomplishments. He looks around once at a dry resting place beneath an acacia tree, then at Yudhishthira, then at the empty road ahead. His expression says, with great dignity, that sainthood has certain flaws. Draupadi sees it. Even now, with everything behind them, she knows her husbands well enough to catch the shape of each silence. She sits in the shade and tears a little wild fruit with careful fingers, dividing it evenly. Bhima receives his portion with the face of a man who once supervised banquets large enough to feed a regiment of elephants and has now been reduced to negotiating with a berry. The dog gets some too. Of course he does. You can hear cicadas shrilling in the heat. A kite wheels overhead. Somewhere beyond the scrub fields, a farmer is shouting at oxen, the sound rising and falling with the creak of a wooden yoke. Life continues all around them with astonishing rudeness. No one stops plowing because kings have become pilgrims. Toward evening, they reach the first villages beyond the direct reach of court. Here, the houses are mud-walled and cool inside, with grain drying on mats and gourds hanging from rafters. Smoke drifts low and blue from cooking fires. The smell of lentils, millet cakes, onion fried in ghee, and river water on clay pots comes floating out into the lane. It is a very difficult smell for fasting travelers, almost criminal. The villagers recognize them in stages. First, the eldest women, because old women miss very little. Then the men, blinking and wiping their hands on cotton wraps. Then the children, who are less reverent and much more honest. One small boy stares openly at Bhima and seems puzzled that a giant of famous appetite has chosen to arrive exactly at supper, looking like this. Hospitality rushes toward them before words do. Water first, always water. Copper pots cool from the well. Hands cupped, faces rinsed, dust turning to mud on ankles. You feel the relief of it in your own skin, the way heat leaves in a slow sigh. The villagers offer grain, roots, milk, a corner of clean floor, soft insistence, all the small greatness of ordinary people. Yudhishthira blesses them and accepts only what fits the vow of the journey. Enough, never excess, a little food, a little water, rest under a roof only when needed. At night, the six lie on the ground outside the village, beneath a banyan whose roots hang like old ropes in the dark. No golden lamps, no carved beams, only stars caught between leaves, the scent of dust cooling after heat, and the soft, restless sound of animals settling in their sheds. The earth keeps its own breath after sunset. You hear crickets, a distant jackal, the dog turning twice before lying down close to the brothers, as if he had always belonged there. Sleep on the ground feels different when you are young. Then it is hardness and challenge, and the boast that you need little. In age, it is a negotiation conducted bone by bone. Bhima mutters once, while lowering himself, and Nakula, who has somehow managed to arrange bark cloth with almost decorative neatness, lies down with an elegance that ought to be illegal. Arjuna stares upward long after the others close their eyes. Perhaps he's listening for Krishna in the night wind, perhaps only to his own breath. Before dawn, they rise. This becomes the rhythm. Walk in cool grey light while dew still clings to the grass. Pause at noon when the roads turn to fire. Walk again when shadows lengthen. Rest wherever the earth permits. They cross small streams first, then broader rivers, with names older than dynasties. At each bank, the air changes. River smell is its own world. Mud, wet reeds, fish moving under the surface, flowers drifting from shrines upstream, the faint sourness of washing clothes against stone. Priests stand at some ghats waist-deep in water, murmuring morning prayers. Women in red and saffron fill pitchers and straighten to watch the travelers pass. Boatmen call out offers, voices carrying over the gleam. When they reach the Ganga, even Bhima grows quiet. The river spreads wide under the sun, bronze and silver together, moving with that unhurried power only great rivers possess. Steps lead down in long, worn terraces, polished by generations of wet feet. Bells ring from a shrine, shaded by peepal trees. Incense lifts in thin lines. White birds stab the shallows for fish. You are there on the steps when they descend. The stone is warm already. The water at the edge is cool around the ankles, then colder, silk over tired skin. They bathe without ceremony, beyond the reverence of the act itself. Hands lift water, heads bow. Old griefs are not washed away, but they are touched by something larger. Ganga has seen too much to be startled by sorrow. The dog waits on the bank, suspicious of the current. Wise animal. Bhima tries to coax him closer with a scrap of kindness and receives a look that plainly says the river may be holy, but it is also wet, and the matter ends there. From the Ganga, they keep moving, through lands of wheat stubble and mango groves, past hermitages where smoke from sacred fires smells of clarified butter and kusa grass, past little shrines under trees where vermilion has been pressed onto stone by 1,000 hopeful fingers, past tanks full of lotus leaves and dragonflies, past roads lined with sal trees that whisper overhead when evening wind moves through them like low speech. Sometimes people gather, sometimes they do not. There are days when the Pandavas pass almost unnoticed among traders, potters, shepherd boys, women carrying bundles of firewood on their hips. It is a strange mercy, anonymity. Great men spend half their lives being observed, to become briefly one more traveler on a hot road. There is freedom in that too. Still, some cannot help but stare. Arjuna's face remains known in too many places. Bhima's build is not exactly subtle. Draupadi, even stripped of adornment, carries herself like flame, remembering shape. When villagers ask softly, if these truly are the sons of Pandu, the answers are given with little fuss. Yes, they are passing through. Yes, they have laid the kingdom down. No, they will not stay. So the land receives them a little at a time. A mat spread under a neem tree, a handful of barley. A place by the fire when rains come early one evening and soak everything in moments. Ah, the rain. Renunciation sounds noble until the first real storm catches you in open country. Clouds build all afternoon, slate blue and heavy. The air turns thick enough to drink. Then the sky opens without restraint. Water slams onto road, field, traveler, dog, everybody. Bark cloth darkens and clings. Hair plasters to foreheads. Sandals, when they use them, become decorative objects of no practical use whatsoever. The road turns to brown slick clay. Bhima, who would happily wrestle a demon but resents losing footing in mud, nearly slides into a ditch and saves himself by grabbing a bent tamarind branch with all the offended majesty of a king ambushed by weather. Arjuna catches Nakula's arm. Sahadeva catches Draupadi's bundle. The dog, proving once again that he understands pilgrimage better than any human present, simply lowers his head and keeps going. They laugh then, not loudly, not for long, but enough. Enough to break the solemnity for a few blessed breaths. You hear it under the rain, that thin, tired laughter of people who have lost too much and still, somehow, can be surprised by mud. At a hermitage, they shelter that night. The ashram sits above a swollen stream, ringed with kadamba trees. Its huts are simple, reed roofs, clay walls, prayer flags faded by years of sun. The smell inside is smoke, damp wool, medicinal herbs hanging from rafters, and rice boiling somewhere close. A rishi thin as a dried root welcomes them with the calm of one who has seen kings before and values them exactly as much as everyone else. That is to say, modestly, he offers kusa grass beds. Bhima looks at the kusa grass the way a veteran looks at a very ambitious goat. But he lies down, because there is nothing else to do. Morning after rain is a gift. The world smells washed, wet leaves, riverbank clay, jasmine shaken clean, cowsheds, yes, still cowsheds, but gentler now. Mist lifts from fields in pale ribbons. Their path glitters with puddles holding pieces of sky. The bark garments dry stiff and even more uncomfortable than before, which seems unfair. But the earth underfoot is cool. They keep to their vow and continue the circuit of the land. Southward for a long stretch. Westward, where the air tastes faintly of salt before the sea is even in sight. They move through red soil country, where dust stains the hem of cloth and gets into every crease of skin. They pass black rock outcrops, hot enough at noon to burn the soul through callus. They ford streams over stepping stones, slick with moss. They climb low hills covered in thorn and wild basil, where bees drift drunkenly among tiny flowers, and lizards dart away from their shadows. At times, the journey feels almost endless, not because the path is confusing, because farewell is large. To renounce a kingdom in a morning is one thing. To walk away from the whole world, one village, one river crossing, one sore ankle at a time. This takes a different strength. You feel it most in their bodies. These are not the bodies from the days of tournament and exile. Bhima's knees ache by evening, though he pretends otherwise. Arjuna's fingers, once so quick to string the Gandiva, flex more slowly in the cold dawn. Nakula massages one ankle at night, where the old strain lingers. Sahadeva's back stiffens after long hours without rest. Draupadi, who once crossed forests in youth and fury, now pauses more often at steep climbs, gathering breath before moving on. Only Yudhishthira seems to thin into the road itself, not stronger exactly, but steadier, as if each mile strips from him one more layer of all he has carried for others. One day, by the shore of the Red Sea, the wind rises hard enough to whip spray into their faces. The ocean appears at last, broad and restless, under a sky crowded with white birds. Foam breaks over dark stones, salt crusts on lips. The taste of it is sharp, clean, and ancient. Their hair whips loose. The dog dislikes the surf on principle and keeps well back above the tide line. They stand there a long while. The sea has always done this to land travelers. It reminds them how small roads are. Then, as the light bends toward evening, another presence comes. You sense it before you understand. Heat without flame. A brightness low to the ground, hidden inside air. The smell changes, suddenly dry, metallic, like wood about to catch. Agni is there, not as a courtly vision with fanfare. More like fire, stepping out from the edge of the world in a shape the eye can hardly hold. And it is for Arjuna that he comes. All this way, Arjuna has carried the Gandiva still, not strung for battle, not lifted in pride, but carried. The old bow, heavy with everything that once was possible. The inexhaustible quivers, too, a warrior's last attachment. Not ornament, identity. Agni reminds him what must now be done. The bow had come by divine hands, and by divine order it must be returned. The time for weapons has ended. The age that knew Arjuna with Gandiva in hand is over. Peace, exhaustion, ending, whatever name you give it, has no use for celestial arrows. Arjuna does not argue. That is what makes the moment so quiet. Years ago, he might have held that bow like an extra limb, impossible to surrender. But now he looks at it as one looks at an old friend met at the final station, with gratitude, with ache, with no right to ask for more time. You can almost feel the weight in his palms, the polished curve worn smooth by his grip, the memory humming in it. Tournaments, forests, vows, chariots, Krishna's reins flashing in battle light. Then he walks to the water. The sea wind presses his bark cloth against his legs. Foam gathers around the stones. He lowers Gandiva and the quivers to the deep, offering them back. The waves take the reflection first, then the weapon itself. Agni's brightness fades like embers covered over. The shore grows ordinary again. Arjuna stands, empty-handed, not helpless, just emptied. Bhima watches him with unusual gentleness. Sahadeva bows his head. Nakula's face turns toward the horizon. Draupadi says nothing, but her stillness holds the whole moment. The dog sneezes at the salt wind, which helps. It is difficult to sink entirely into cosmic solemnity when a damp dog is making practical objections to the sea. From there, they turn again. Northward now, always north. The land begins to rise in long, patient folds. Air grows thinner, then cleaner. The heat loosens its grip. Morning comes cooler, and their breath shows faintly at dawn. Pine appears among the older broadleaf forests. Streams run faster over stone. Paths narrow. Villages perch on hillsides with slate roofs and terraced fields cut like steps for giants. You hear new sounds, goat herds whistling from high slopes, prayer bells thinner in the cold, wind moving through cedar instead of mango, the clack of prayer wheels in small mountain shrines. At night, the stars sharpen. No palace haze, no river mist, just black sky and white fire overhead, close enough to make you understand why old sages looked up and felt themselves measured. The climb begins modestly, then less so. Road becomes path. Path becomes ledge. Ledge becomes a suggestion offered by stone to feet that must choose carefully. The Pandavas move more slowly now. The bark cloth that scratched in summer wind does almost nothing against mountain chill. They wrap themselves tighter. Hands grow rougher. Lips crack in the cold. Water from streams numbs the fingers. You can feel the mountain air in your own chest. Each breath cleaner. Each breath harder. Each breath asking to be noticed. They pass pilgrims going the other way. Merchants with wool bundles. Ascetics smeared with ash. Women carrying baskets of herbs. A man leading 3 reluctant goats who are very clear that mountains are an overrated invention. Everyone steps aside sooner or later to let the old pilgrims pass. Some know them. Some only sense something unusual and bow without knowing why. By now the dog is no longer trailing. He walks close, sometimes beside Yudhishthira's left knee, sometimes just behind, placing each paw with ridiculous seriousness on narrow ground. He has become part of the shape of the company, as natural as Bhima's broad stride or Arjuna's silence. One evening they camp above the clouds. It happens so gradually you almost miss it. Mist fills the valley below. Then sunset turns the whole white sea gold and rose, and there they are, sitting on stone with a world of cloud beneath them. The wind smells of snow somewhere far ahead. Juniper smoke from a tiny shepherd shrine drifts sweet and bitter together. No one says much. What would words improve? Bhima chews slowly on roasted roots and does not complain, which is how you know the journey is changing him or exhausting him past complaint. Sometimes the two look alike. Arjuna rubs warmth back into his hands. Nakula and Sahadeva share a blanket without discussion, moving with that twin instinct they have always had. Draupadi looks north, where the high peaks have begun to show themselves in glimpses through evening light, white, severe, waiting, and Yudhishthira sits with his face turned toward them too. The mountains are still far, but now they are no longer rumor. They are there, vast, silent, drawing the old king onward. Night deepens. The cold enters stone, cloth, bone. The dog curls near Yudhishthira's feet, and sleeps with one ear half raised to the wind. Somewhere below, invisible in darkness, a river throws itself through the gorge with endless force. Above, the stars burn without flicker. You sit there with them in the high hush and understand that the world behind has nearly loosened its final hold. The throne is gone. The cities are far. The fields and ferries and village fires lie below like another life. Ahead, there is only the mountain path, the white distances, and whatever remains to be laid down before the summit. By dawn, they rise again. The grass is silver with frost. Their footprints show briefly in the brittle ground, then vanish as the sun touches them. Breath smokes in pale streams. The first light catches on the far snow peaks and turns them rose gold for one impossible moment before the day grows plain again. They gather what little they carry. A just bark cloth, tighten silence around themselves like another garment. And with the dog trotting close, they turn fully toward the Himalayas at last, where the road narrows, the air thins, and the mountain begins to ask its questions. The land grows steeper, the air grows thinner, and now the journey begins asking for everything. By midday, the path has become less a road than an agreement with stone. Loose shale skids under their feet. Frost lingers in shadows even after sunrise. The wind comes down the ridges sharp and clean, smelling of snow, pine resin, and old rock that has never known warmth for long. You feel it in your own chest after a few imagined steps. Breath in, breath out. Already not enough. The brothers walk in a long, quiet line. Yudhishthira first, steady as a staff, planted in earth. Behind him, Bhima, still broad, still powerful, though the mountain has no interest in old reputations. Arjuna follows, with that grave inward look he has worn ever since the west coast and the emptying of his strength. Then Nakula and Sahadeva, once princes who could make even bark cloth look orderly. Draupadi comes with them, dark hair braided simply, face lean now, all the old royal brightness burned down to a hard, clear ember. And the dog. The dog is impossible to ignore now. He pads over ice as if born from it. His ribs show faintly beneath dusty fur. His ears twitch at every gust. Sometimes he runs ahead, then circles back, making sure Yudhishthira is still there, as if the eldest Pandava might somehow wander off and need collecting. It is a very serious little face for such a scruffy creature. The climb goes on. Below them, the world has already begun to simplify. Villages disappear first, then fields, then roads. Rivers become silver threads laid carelessly across the earth. What had once been kingdoms now looks like folds in cloth. The sky feels closer here, not metaphorically, not poetically, just physically close, as if you could lift a hand and touch the pale blue underside of it. By afternoon, the sun glares off snowfields so brightly that everyone narrows their eyes. The light is white and merciless. It gets into everything, into the lashes, into the teeth, into the wrinkles at the corners of old eyes. Their bark garments flap in the wind. Their feet sink, crunch, slide, recover. No one speaks much. There is nothing to waste breath on. But Bhima still mutters now and then, little complaints aimed mostly at the mountain itself. The path is too narrow. The snow is trying to trip him on purpose. The wind is personally insulting. Somewhere in another life, when servants announced meals with drums, this would have been a very strong argument for staying indoors. Now the mountain offers no apology. Toward evening, they reach a ledge where a few twisted shrubs cling to gravel between patches of old snow. The place is bare, except for a cracked boulder and a trickle of meltwater that tastes of stone and sky. They rest there in silence. Draupadi sits carefully, pressing one hand to the ground as if listening through her palm. Bhima crouches and breathes like a bellows. Arjuna's shoulders rise and fall, slow and measured. Nakula smooths snow off his garment from pure habit, though it changes nothing. Sahadeva looks west for a long time, his face unreadable. Yudhishthira gives the dog a little water from his cupped hand. The animal drinks delicately, which somehow makes it funnier. Everyone else is swallowing mountain air like medicine, and this dog is sipping as if he has standards. Then night comes hard. At this height, there is no gentle settling into darkness. The warmth goes first. The color goes next. The peaks sharpen under starlight until the whole world looks carved from silver bone. Their breath smokes, frost forms on cloth edges. Somewhere far off, hidden in ravines, ice cracks with a sound like temple drums struck underwater. You sit near them in the bitter, clean cold and feel how little remains now between these travelers and the sky. No attendants, no banners, no torches, just old heroes, a queen, and a dog sleeping in the lee of stone. Dawn comes thin and pale. They rise stiffly. The mountain is steeper, so they climb. Hours pass. Then the first ending comes. It happens without warning, and that is the gentlest thing about it. The path curves around a slope of wind-packed snow. On one side, the mountain rises in a wall of ice-burnished stone. On the other, the land falls away into whiteness and cloud. Everyone moves carefully, one foot, then the next, bark cloth snapping softly in the wind. Draupadi has been keeping pace. Then she is not. There is a small sound behind them. Not a cry, just the soft betrayed scrape of a foot losing hold. Bhima turns first. Arjuna half turns too late. You see her sway, gather herself, fail to gather enough. She sinks to one knee in the snow, then gently to her side, as if the mountain has finally asked for rest, and she has given it. Her dark hair loosens against the white. The contrast is startling, like ink spilled on milk. For one suspended moment, no one moves. The wind keeps blowing. Snow dust skims over the path. Bhima's face changes first. Shock, then anger, then something younger and more helpless than either. He calls to Yudhishthira and asks the question he will keep asking, because what else is there to do when the impossible becomes simple and final? Why has she fallen? What flaw could bring down Draupadi, who endured humiliation, exile, forest hardship, war, and the slow grind of grief, and still kept walking? Yudhishthira does not turn back. That hurts to witness. It is meant to. His face remains forward, lined and calm, and full of a sorrow he will not feed with gesture. He tells Bhama the truth as he sees it. Draupadi loved them all, stood with them all, suffered with them all. But in the inward chambers of her heart, she had favored Arjuna above the rest. A small tilt, a secret leaning, not enough to mar her greatness, enough, perhaps, to be laid down here. The words vanish quickly in the wind, but they land. Arjuna closes his eyes, only for a breath. Then he opens them again. You stand there with the smell of cold stone in your nose and the sting of bright snow in your eyes, and suddenly all the years gather around her. The Swayamvara hall, the dice hall, the forest, the years of wandering, the insult she never forgot, the vengeance she waited for, the sons she lost, the kingship she barely enjoyed, and now this, No flames, no palace mourning, just mountain silence. Bhima wants to stop. Every line of him wants to turn. Lift her. Refuse this. Demand that grief obey strength for once. But the path rises ahead. Yudhishthira walks on, and after a long moment, the others do too. This is the cruelty of the last journey. It allows no lingering. Snow begins to powder over where she lies. By the next bend, she is gone from sight. The dog pauses there. Just once, he looks back. Then he follows. The climb grows harder after that. Loss has weight. Even when left behind, it rides in the chest. Bhima's breathing is louder now, rough with effort and feeling. Arjuna's steps have become even more precise, as if each must be chosen against memory. Nakula and Sahadeva, who had always moved with a kind of mirrored grace, now seem separated by more than the distance between them. Each is alone with his thoughts. Yudhishthira keeps the same pace. Not fast, not slow, unanswerable. By midday, clouds gather below them, so that the lower world disappears entirely. It is like walking above creation. The peaks rise from white mist, like islands from milk. Ravens wheel in the distance, black against the snow glare. The air tastes thin and metallic. You can feel the dryness in your throat, just listening. Even swallowing seems loud. They pass over ridges where only lichens cling. They cross narrow shelves of ice where meltwater runs under a glassy skin. Their old bodies complain in every joint. Knees once bent in battle now stiffen in cold. Hands once steady on bowstrings tremble from wind. Their feet, calloused by the long pilgrimage, still ache with every hidden rock. Renunciation sounds noble from a warm room. On an empty mountain, it also means no blankets worth the name, no cook fire that lasts, and no one bringing lentils at sunset. Even Bhima does not mention supper now. That is how high they are. The second fall comes on a long incline of broken stone where the snow has thinned and the ground shows through in brown-grey patches. Sahadeva has been walking quietly all morning, his face composed, his gaze lowered. He always had the look of a man who knew something a little earlier than everyone else. Then one step falters. It is so slight you almost miss it. His ankle turns on a loose rock. He catches himself, takes another step. Then the strength leaves him as if some inner cord has been cut. He sinks down, not heavily, but with the exhausted finality of a lamp going out when the oil is gone. One hand touches the earth. His head bows. He does not rise. Bhima makes a broken sound and asks again, "Why him? Why Sahadeva, the wise one, the quiet one, the one who spoke least and seemed to understand most?" The mountain wind whistles through a crack in the rocks. Yudhishthira answers without bitterness. Sahadeva was wise indeed. But he held his wisdom too tightly. In his heart, he believed there was no equal to him in knowledge. That hidden pride, fine as a hair and hard as wire, has no place beyond this point. Sahadeva lies still among the stones, the hem of his bark cloth stirring. You remember him younger, a prince with clear eyes, a boy who read omens, a man who knew when disaster was coming and still had to walk toward it with everyone else. There is something especially sad about the fall of the quiet ones. They take up so little space, and when they are gone, the space feels larger anyway. Nakula stands looking at his twin. Their lives had begun together so closely that people often spoke their names in one breath. Now one breath remains and one does not. He does not weep. This journey has gone beyond tears, into that high place where grief becomes cold and clean and strangely formal. They move on. Now there are 4 men and a dog. The line on the mountain looks thinner, the silence wider. That afternoon the wind changes. It comes from the north, carrying a smell so pure it is almost nothing at all. Not forest, not river, not earth, just snow and distance and the old sleeping heart of the Himalaya. Ice crystals sting their cheeks. The light turns hard and blue. Nakula slips once, but recovers. Bhima growls at the mountain as if it has cheated. For a moment, absurdly, the dog sneezes. It is a small, dry sneeze of great indignation, and Bhima actually huffs one breath of laughter through his nose. That, on this mountain, counts as comedy. The path narrows again as they begin the true ascent toward the high shining reaches. The air is so thin now that conversation would be a wasteful luxury. But Bhima still finds breath for one thing. He keeps listening behind him, perhaps hoping to hear steps that will not return. At last, Nakula falls. He had always moved beautifully. Even now, age and hardship could not fully erase it. There is grace in the way he places his feet, in how he balances over unstable ground, in the straight line of his back. But grace is not immunity. They are crossing a field of old snow, dimpled with wind patterns, each ridge casting delicate blue shadows. The sun is lowering. Every breath hurts. Nakula stumbles, rights himself, then stumbles again. He kneels. One hand presses against his chest. His face, even worn and weathered, still carries that old loveliness. Then he bows forward and lies upon the snow as gently as a garland laid before a shrine. Bhima's voice cracks when he asks this time, "Why Nakula? Sweet-faced, loyal Nakula, the one who gave trouble to no one except perhaps mirrors." Yudhishthira's answer comes quiet as frost. Nakula knew his beauty and cherished it. He believed no one matched him in form. Such pride may seem small beside the crimes of kings, but the mountain is stripping away every last adornment now. Even self-regard, as light as perfume, cannot go higher. The wind passes over Nakula and lifts a strand of his hair. For a strange instant, he looks merely asleep. You feel the cold biting your fingers, though your hands are not truly there. You smell that mineral scent of snow beginning to freeze harder under evening shadow. And you feel, too, the tenderness of this judgment. It does not deny what was noble in him. It only names what still clung. Sahadeva below, Nakula here. The twins are parted on earth by only a little stretch of mountain, which somehow feels both cruel and kind. Arjuna stands very still. Bhima turns his face away. Yudhishthira walks on. The dog walks on too, placing each paw in the prints of the king whenever he can, as if borrowing the exact path. Night catches them before they find shelter. They huddle in the lee of a ridge under stars so bright they seem almost near enough to ring like metal. No fire lasts here. The wind steals heat faster than twigs can give it. They wrap their bark garments tight, sit close to stone, and endure. Bhima does not sleep much. You can tell by the way he shifts, the way his breath changes, the way he keeps staring into darkness where there is nothing to see. Arjuna sits with folded hands and his head bent. Yudhishthira remains upright for a long time, eyes half closed as if listening to something under the wind. The dog sleeps pressed against his side, a warm patch of life against cold bark cloth. Simple comfort. By morning, Arjuna's lips are pale from cold. Bhima's beard is crusted with frost. Yudhishthira rises first. Again they climb. Now the mountain is almost stripped of color. White, grey, blue shadow. The occasional rust stain where iron sleeps in stone. Their world has narrowed to foot placement, breath, and the next ridge. Behind them lie wife, brothers, cities, battles, sons, enemies, friends, and all the meals ever eaten in gold halls. Ahead lies only more sky, and the third ending waits for Arjuna. It comes near noon on a slope of shining snow, where the sun burns so fiercely the light seems to come from underfoot as well as above. Arjuna has been slower today, not weak exactly, just emptied. You can see it in the way his shoulders no longer carry that old invisible bowman's pride. His hands, once quick as thought, open and close stiffly in the cold. He had given Gandiva back to the waters, but memory still weighs more than wood. The wind rises, their garments whip sharply, snow snakes across the surface in white ribbons. Then Arjuna stops. He plants his feet as if to continue and cannot. He sways. For one strange heartbeat, he looks almost offended, like a man discovering that his own body has become unfamiliar property. Then he sinks, first to one knee, then lower, the great archer folding into the white brilliance of the mountain. Bhima lurches toward him, but cannot get there in time. Again the question, always the question. Why Arjuna? Why the one favored by Krishna? The one who won Draupadi? The one whose arrows darkened battlefields? The one who heard the song of the Lord between two armies? Why must he fall here like any tired old traveler? Yudhishthira tells him. Arjuna was peerless in skill, but he had also taken pride in that skill. He had boasted that he would destroy his enemies in a single day, had spoken as if his will alone could command outcomes. He had looked on other archers as lesser men. Greatness was his. So was that boastful fire, and that too must be left behind. The answer enters the snow-bright silence and stays there. Arjuna lies with one arm outflung, fingers curved slightly, as if still half remembering the shape of a bowstring. You cannot help seeing all his lives at once. The boy in the training ground, the warrior in the chariot beside Krishna, the exile in disguise, the father, the friend, the man who could once call divine weapons by name and now could not hold the mountain for one more hour. There is no humiliation in it, only completion. Bhima stands over him breathing hard. The air is so thin that grief itself seems to come in shorter measures. He wants to protest, to argue, to say that everyone boasts, especially warriors, especially brothers, to say that if boasting were a mortal flaw, half the earth would have fallen years ago. And honestly, with Bhima, that would not be unfair. But he does not argue. Perhaps because the mountain is beyond argument. Perhaps because the answer, though sharp, is true enough. So they go on. Now there are only three: Yudhishthira, Bhima, and the dog. The path turns savage after that. Broken ridges, cornices of overhanging snow, black rock peering through white like old scars. Their shadows grow small beneath them in the fierce overhead sun. No birds now, no shrubs, no sound but wind and the scrape of feet. You are so high that the world below has vanished completely. It is just whiteness above whiteness. Bhima labors. His strength is still immense, but this is not a mace duel. There is no enemy to strike, no rage to burn for fuel. The mountain asks for a different kind of power, and it asks without admiration. Sweat freezes on his neck. His breath tears in and out. More than once, he bends, hands on thighs, then forces himself upright because Yudhishthira has not stopped. The eldest brother has become almost unnaturally calm. Age has pared him down to principle and motion. Step, breath, step. The dog keeps near him, sometimes close enough that his shoulder brushes Yudhishthira's leg. There is something deeply moving in that small loyalty. A king who left a kingdom, a man who lost brothers one by one. And still, this creature remains, asking for nothing but the right to keep walking beside him. Afternoon pales toward evening. The cold returns with a predator's patience. Bhima's voice finally breaks the silence. He calls ahead to Yudhishthira and asks him to slow, not as a command, not even as a complaint, almost as a younger brother again, asking not to be left too far behind in the dark. Yudhishthira slows a little, not enough to rescue anything, enough to honor the request. They climb one last ridge of hard-packed snow where the surface squeaks underfoot. Beyond it rises a long white incline leading toward a brilliance that seems less like landscape and more like the edge of another world. Bhima has carried so much for so long: anger, hunger, laughter, strength, vows, brother love as large as his appetite. He carried insults like burning coals for years, carried vengeance until the hour came to spend it, carried his family through exile more than once with sheer ferocious vitality. If Yudhishthira was the conscience of the Pandavas and Arjuna their brilliance, Bhima was their living force, their roar, their refusal to be crushed. Now even he begins to fail. His foot sinks deep. He heaves it free. Another step, another. Then the great body shudders. He stumbles to one knee, pushes up, stumbles again. Snow sprays, breath rasps. He calls out to Yudhishthira with bewilderment more painful than fear. He asks why he, Bhima, beloved and loyal, mighty in battle, must fall. What fault of his has brought him down at last? Yudhishthira turns his head slightly, only slightly. His answer is grave and tender both. Bhima loved food greatly. Bhima delighted in his own strength. Bhima boasted of it, and in his joy did not always think first of others. These are the weights he cannot carry higher. It is almost unbearable, because it is true, and because it is so human. Bhima, who could split mountains in old songs, is undone in part by appetite and pride, by the very overflowing life that made him Bhima. He looks at Yudhishthira for a long moment. There is hurt there, and perhaps understanding too. Then the last of his strength leaves him. He settles back upon the snow, huge even in stillness, as if the mountain itself has grown another outcrop. The wind moves through his hair. His chest rises once, twice, then is quiet. The silence afterward is enormous. No clash of mace, no war cry, just snow traveling lightly over a hero at rest. You feel it then with full force, the scale of what has happened. Draupadi gone, Sahadeva gone, Nakula gone, Arjuna gone, Bhima gone, an entire age lying behind on the white path. Yudhishthira stands alone, almost alone. The dog comes to stand beside him. That simple, that faithful, that strange. The king looks ahead. If he weeps, the wind takes it. If his heart breaks again, it breaks inwardly where only Dharma could measure it. He does not go back. He cannot. This road has narrowed beyond the width of longing. So now there are two figures moving through the high world, an old king in bark cloth and a stray dog with cold bright eyes. The image would have seemed absurd in Hastinapura. In the mountains, it feels inevitable. Evening deepens. The white slopes blush gold, then ash, then blue. The cold sharpens until each breath feels carved. Yet Yudhishthira walks on, and the dog walks with him. Their footprints stamp briefly into the snow and begin at once to soften. You walk with them. You hear nothing but wind combing the ridgelines. You smell only frost, stone, and the faint animal warmth of the dog whenever he comes close. You feel the ache in old knees, the burn in dry lungs, the strange floating lightness of high altitude, where the body seems both heavy and insubstantial. And you understand that the mountain has done what no battlefield ever could. It has stripped away rank, victory, grievance, beauty, cleverness, skill, strength, one by one, until only duty remains. Night on the upper slopes is not dark in the ordinary way. Snow gathers starlight and gives it back. The ridges glow faintly. The world becomes a silent, blue-white dream. Yudhishthira rests against a jut of stone, one hand on the dog's back. The animal's fur is rough and cold at the tips, warm underneath. No priest chants here. No conch announces the hour. The only witness is the sky. Somewhere below, hidden by cloud and distance, kingdoms continue. Fires are lit. Mothers hush children. Watchmen pace walls. Priests pour ghee. Traders count coins. Parikshit sleeps or wakes beneath palace roofs made ready for him. The world goes on doing what the world does. But up here, another kind of kingdom is ending. Yudhishthira closes his eyes. Perhaps he sees them as they were. Draupadi in royal silk, dark as rain clouds. Sahadeva with thoughtful gaze. Nakula, bright as spring. Arjuna laughing before sorrow hardened him. Bhima demanding more food with the confidence of a man who considered excess a virtue and nearly made it one. Perhaps he sees none of that. Perhaps he is too tired, even for memory. Dawn comes once more. He rises once more. The dog rises too, shakes snow from his coat, and sneezes again, with quiet outrage at the morning. Even now, even here, it helps. The path ahead glows under first light. No one remains to ask questions now. No brother calls from behind. No beloved queen treads softly in the snow. Only the last Pandava and the silent companion at his heel move toward the upper brilliance, where the air is almost too pure to breathe, and the world below has entirely fallen away. The mountain asked for everything, and almost everything has been given. Ahead, in the cold white radiance, something waits. Not yet. For now, stay here. Stay with the crunch of snow under tired feet. Stay with the wind brushing prayer flags of ice along the ridge. Stay with the old king, his bark cloth faded, his face cut by weather and wisdom, walking on with no witness but a dog and the listening sky. Their shadows stretch long over the snow, then shorten, then blur, and together they climb toward the place where even the mountain path must finally end. At last, there is only one king, one dog, and the kind of silence that hears the wheels of heaven. You can feel the cold bite inside your nose with every breath. The ridge narrows, snow lies in long bright sheets over stone, and the sun turns everything so white, your eyes ache with it. The wind has lost all softness now. It does not sing, it scours. Yudhishthira walks anyway. His steps are slow, exact, almost careful enough to seem ceremonial. Bark cloth flaps against his thin frame. His hair is rough with frost. Beside him, the dog keeps pace, placing each paw with the patient seriousness of a creature who never asked for glory and is therefore much less disappointed by its absence. You are so high now that the world below feels imagined. No city, no court, no battlefield, no dice hall, no sound of drums, only the crunch of snow, the hiss of wind over rock, and the dry rasp of an old king breathing through the cold. A little later, even the ridge seems to end. Ahead, there is open brightness, a vast pale distance where earth and sky almost meet. It feels less like a place than a threshold. Yudhishthira stops there, not from fear, perhaps, but because there is nowhere obvious left to place the next foot. The dog stops too. Its ears lift, and then the light changes. It begins as a gold glimmer in the white, small at first, no bigger than sunlight on ice. Then it grows. The air trembles. A sound rolls over the mountain, deep and round and musical, like bronze struck inside a temple large enough to hold the sky. A chariot comes through the brilliance, not along the ground, through the radiance itself. Its wheels shine like revolving suns. Its yoke flashes with lightning colors. The horses are pale as storm cloud edges, restless, immortal, breathing mist that smells not of animal sweat, but of rain on dry stone. Banners stream behind it without freezing. Jewels burn on its frame with their own warm light. Indra has arrived. After everything, he does not come quietly. And to be fair, this is not really a moment for modesty. The mountain is suddenly full of splendor, gold on white, thunder wrapped in perfume and light. You can almost feel the warmth pouring from that celestial car, a mercy after the cutting cold. Indra stands within it, lordly, radiant, crowned. He has come for Yudhishthira alive, in the body that has endured exile, kingship, grief, and this last impossible climb. The invitation is simple. Enough walking, enough snow, enough of this hard earth. Enter the chariot. Heaven is ready. For a moment, the whole world seems to pause around that offer. Even the wind lessens. Yudhishthira looks at the chariot, then at the dog. He asks first for the others, not for himself, never for himself first. He wants his brothers. He wants Draupadi. He has not come this far to be pleased by comfort handed to him alone. Indra tells him they have already gone ahead. Their road has ended elsewhere. They are where they are meant to be. That is meant to soothe. It does not fully soothe him. Still, the promise is given. They are not lost. Then Yudhishthira makes the smallest motion with one hand, as if indicating what should be obvious. The dog too must come. That is where the stillness sharpens. Because Indra refuses. He does not rage. He does not mock. He simply says no. Heaven is no place for a dog. The king may ascend. The animal must remain. The mountain becomes very quiet. This is the last test, and it arrives, wearing an ordinary face. Not a war, not a throne, not a terrible vow. Just this, a tired animal who stayed. You can feel the cold in that silence. It settles on your skin like fine ash. The dog stands close to Yudhishthira's leg, not whining, not pleading. Its coat is windrough. One paw lifts briefly from the snow, then sets down again. A practical little movement. Cold is cold. Indra urges him again. The chariot gleams. Heaven waits. After such a road, after all, he has endured. What man would delay? What man would refuse? If there was ever a moment to say, reasonably, enough is enough, this would be it. Yudhishthira does not move. He says, with the calm he has carried through so many impossible choices, that he cannot abandon one who has sought his shelter. His brothers had fallen beyond his power to save. Draupadi had fallen beyond his power to lift, but this creature is still beside him, still trusting him, still alive. That changes everything. The king who once lost a kingdom at dice, who wandered forests, who ruled a wounded earth, now stands on the edge of heaven arguing for a dog. And somehow it is the most kingly thing he has ever done. The wind stirs the dog's fur. Frost clings to its muzzle. If dogs can look offended by divine bureaucracy, this one comes fairly close. Indra presses harder. He tells Yudhishthira that no sin touches him if he leaves the animal. He speaks of celestial law, of fitness, of what is permitted and what is not. He offers glory without delay. Yudhishthira answers that glory bought with faithlessness is no glory at all. He will not trade loyalty for bliss. He will not enter a paradise that demands abandonment as an entrance fee. The words do not come hot. They come clear. That is what makes them so strong. You are standing there with him now, in that white and gold brightness, and you can feel what remains of the old world gathering inside this one decision. Everything he has been is here. The man who tried, failed, learned, suffered, and kept choosing duty, even when duty was a thorny, painful thing. The man who understood too late, then better, then deeper. The dog waits, Indra waits, the mountain waits. Then the dog changes. No thunderclap, no theatrical blaze of terror, only a radiant unfolding, as if a hidden lamp has been uncovered at last. The rough coat brightens. The animal form loosens like a garment falling away. Light rises from it, steady and noble. Before Yudhishthira stands not a stray companion from the road, but Dharma himself. His divine father, the Lord of righteousness, had padded beside him through snow and silence all this time. Suddenly the whole journey gleams differently. Those patient paws in dust, that faithful shape by the fireless nights, that quiet presence beside every loss, never random, never merely a dog. Dharma looks on Yudhishthira with deep approval, and there is warmth in it. The kind a son has spent a lifetime earning without ever quite expecting to receive. He tells him that once before he had been tested in the forest, and once before he had chosen fairness over preference. Now, at the summit, he has chosen compassion over reward. Again, even now, especially now. The air seems softer. The chariot's brilliance no longer feels like a challenge. It feels like welcome. Indra's refusal has vanished like frost under sunlight because the gate was never truly barred. The test is complete, and Yudhishthira has answered as only Yudhishthira could. The mountain itself seems to exhale. Far below, unseen rivers continue their long silver movement through India. Forests breathe, cities warm under afternoon sun. In Hastinapura, perhaps, lamps are being trimmed for evening. Parikshit sits on a throne once held by men who now belong to legend. The world goes on, but up here, at the roof of it, another door opens. You can almost hear it before you see it. Not hinges, not iron, but a widening in the music of the air. The brightness ahead unfolds into depth. Clouds part like curtains of pearl. Fragrance spills through the cold. Lotus, sandalwood, rain, something sweet and impossible to name. It is the scent of a place untouched by dust. Heaven, not distant now, near, very near. Indra lifts a hand. Dharma stands beside his son. The chariot waits with all its golden patience. Yudhishthira looks once more behind him. There is no path left to see, only high, white slopes and the faint traces of steps, already being erased by wind. No marks remain of Bhima's heavy tread, or Arjuna's archer's stride, or the graceful footfall of Nakula and Sahadeva, or Draupadi's final passage. The mountain keeps its silence, but nothing is truly gone. He turns back. Then, with no kingdom left to guard, no argument left to make, and no companion abandoned, Yudhishthira steps into the car of heaven. Light gathers around him. The horses rise. The wheels do not bite into snow. They sing through air, and as the chariot lifts above the last ridge, the white world falls away beneath him like a dream at dawn, while ahead the celestial road opens wide. bright as a river of morning. So after all of that, what stays with us? The halls have gone quiet, the lamps are low, and one truth remains. Victory is not the same thing as peace. The Pandavas won the kingdom. They sat on the throne. Justice in the worldly sense was done. The men who had cheated, humiliated, and hunted them were brought down. And still, the halls of Hastinapura never sounded quite right again. That matters, because this ending refuses the easy comfort of saying that if you fight for the right side, life will neatly reward you. It does not. Yudhishthira rules well, but his heart is never light. Bhima eats at royal tables, but the old laughter has changed. Arjuna still breathes, but after Krishna leaves, even his mighty hands remember that strength is borrowed for a time. The ancient rishis wanted you to feel that deeply. Dharma does not mean a painless life. It means the right path through a painful one. And then comes the harder truth. Even righteous rulers must let go of power. That is one of the most beautiful things in the Pandavas' last journey. They do not cling to the throne until their fingers stiffen around it. They do not pretend that crowns can keep time from moving. They see the age changing. They feel the great fabric loosening. And they do the difficult, holy thing. They step aside. That is renunciation. Not disgust with the world, not failure, not giving up because nothing matters. Renunciation in this tale is gentler than that. It is knowing when your work is finished. It is blessing the next hands that must carry the burden. It is laying down silk, gold, titles, and certainty, because none of them were ever meant to stay forever. You can almost feel the cool emptiness of those palace rooms after the jewels are removed. The weight gone from the wrists, the bark cloth rough on old skin, strange at first, honest after a while. That is how the world works in this telling. You hold what is yours for a time. Then you release it. Krishna's departure makes that truth impossible to ignore. While he lives, there is still a center holding. Even in grief, even after Kurukshetra, there is still that bright presence moving through the world, smiling, guiding, correcting, protecting. Once he leaves, the age turns, not gradually, all at once. That is why Arjuna's bow feels different in his hand. That is why the old power flickers. That is why the Pandavas understand, without anyone needing to explain it at length, that their own season has ended too. In Hindu thought, the world moves in great cycles. Ages rise, ripen, and decline. Krishna's leaving is not only the passing of a beloved friend, it is the sound of one age closing behind him. Time has called everyone forward, and time in the Mahabharata is never a small thing. It is larger than kings, larger than vows, larger than grief. That is why the final journey matters so much. It strips everything down until only the truth remains. One by one, the companions fall. Draupadi first, then Sahadeva, then Nakula, then Arjuna, then Bhima. Those moments can sound severe if you hear them too quickly. She loved one husband more. He was proud of his wisdom. He was proud of his beauty. He boasted. He delighted too much in strength and appetite. It can seem almost harsh, but the deeper feeling is not cruelty. It is recognition. Each of them carries something painfully human. Draupadi, for all her greatness, is not made of stone. Her heart leaned. Sahadeva knew much and quietly cherished that knowledge. Nakula knew he was lovely. Arjuna believed in his own unmatched power. Bhima loved the world in a big, physical, glorious way, and sometimes forgot that others had smaller hungers, smaller strengths. These are not monstrous faults. They are familiar ones. That is the tenderness hidden inside this mountain climb. The greatest heroes are still human. They are brave, radiant, beloved, and still touched by ego, preference, vanity, hunger, pride. Karma is subtle like that. Not always thunderbolts. Sometimes just the quiet weight of what clings to the self. And Yudhishthira keeps walking. Not because he does not love them, because this final path is about what cannot be carried into the highest place. The mountain asks for everything: rank, beauty, talent, appetite, even the memory of being the one who could always win. All of it must loosen. That is where Maya comes in. Maya is the great enchantment of worldly life, the spell that makes shifting things seem permanent and borrowed roles feel like our deepest identity. King, hero, husband, beauty, archer, strong man, wise man. Even grief can become part of it. We clutch these names and think they are the whole of us. The last Ascent says, no, those are garments, sacred garments sometimes, necessary garments, but garments all the same. And then, at the very end, comes the dog. This is the part that completes Yudhishthira. All his life, he has been tested on Dharma. In the dice hall, in exile, in the forest, on the battlefield, in the long years after. Dharma is often translated as duty, but in this journey, it feels more intimate than that. It is the deep law of rightness, the thing that asks, what do you owe? Not just to kings and rituals and vows, but to the vulnerable one beside you. By the time Indra's chariot arrives, Yudhishthira has lost almost everything. Brothers gone, Draupadi gone, kingdom behind him, earth itself falling away. And then he is asked for one more abandonment. A small one, it seems. Only a dog, only an animal, only a final convenience before heaven. He refuses. That refusal is the crown he was always meant to wear. Because Dharma, at its highest, is not cold perfection. It is not merely rule following. It is compassion that does not break under pressure. It is fidelity when no one would blame you for choosing comfort. It is remembering that the humble life walking beside you is not beneath your concern. That is why Dharma himself stands revealed there. Yudhishthira had finally become exactly what he had spent a lifetime trying to be. And so the whole departure gathers into one quiet teaching. Rule well while it is your turn. Do your duty even when it is heavy. Do not imagine that success will erase sorrow. It will not. Do not imagine sorrow cancels meaning. It does not. Love people fully, but do not cling to the roles they play or the place they hold in your life forever. When time changes, feel it. When the work is finished, release it. When power must be set it down with steady hands. When a weaker being trusts you, do not abandon it. That is the serenity this ending offers us, not the promise that life will spare you loss. The Mahabharata is far too honest for that. What it offers instead is something calmer and, in its way, kinder. That there is a right way to live inside. Impermanence. That is Dharma. You cannot stop the ages from turning. You cannot keep Krishna on earth forever. You cannot make youth stay in the limbs or victory stay sweet in the mouth. But you can meet each season rightly. You can act with honor. You can accept the passing of things without becoming bitter. You can loosen your grip with grace. And when the time comes for your own final journey, whether it is a throne you leave, a title, a home, a version of yourself, or simply a day now ending, you can walk as they walked, with less noise than before, with fewer possessions, with more truth. until at last even the footprints fade, and what remains is not the gold, not the power, not the applause, but the quiet radiance of a life carried faithfully to its end. And once the teaching is heard, the mountain grows quiet again. The wind moves over the high ridges with a sound like breath through a conch shell, long and low and fading. Snow lies over the path where the last footprints were pressed. Then even those soften. You can almost see it. A white slope, a sky so pale it seems made of milk, the edge of the world. And there, just for a moment in the mind's eye, the line of them still continues forward. 5 brothers, 1 queen, 1 lean, faithful dog, moving where no kingdom can follow. Then the light takes them. Far below, life does not stop. It never does. In Hastinapura, dawn still comes with smoke rising from cooking fires. Water still splashes over stone courtyards. Temple bells still ring the morning open. The throne room, which once held Yudhishthira's grave stillness and Bhima's impossible shoulders and Arjuna's sharp, restless gaze, does not remain empty for long. Parikshit sits there now, young, alert, carrying an inheritance heavy as iron and bright as gold. You can picture him beneath the royal umbrella, hearing petitions while scribes bend over palm leaves. The polished floor is cool beneath bare feet. The air smells of sandalwood, lamp ghee, and the faint dust that always sneaks in from the roads, because roads mean people, and people mean the kingdom is alive. Old Creeper remains near him, a thin, enduring figure from an older age, like the last tree left standing after a storm season. Yuyutsu watches over the order of the court. Servants move quietly. Guards strike spear butts on stone. Outside, children who were born after the war chase each other across sunlit courtyards and know the great battle only as something their elders fall silent about. That is how the world continues, not by forgetting, by carrying. The crowns were set down. Other hands received them. In the western lands too, where so much had been broken, new order gathers itself from grief. The sea still breathes against the shore. Salt wind still moves through ruined walls and fresh-built homes alike. Boats still rock in the harbors. Somewhere, a woman sweeps a threshold clean. Somewhere, a priest ties fresh flowers before a shrine. Somewhere, a child hears Krishna's name and lifts his head. The age has turned, yes, but morning still asks to be met. You stand for a while in that feeling, the strange tenderness of a world that survives its heroes. The Pandavas are gone from sight, and yet their absence does not leave a wound that never closes. It becomes something else, a depth, a chamber in the heart, a place where memory burns like a steady lamp. Their names begin to travel differently now, not shouted across battlefields, not proclaimed by heralds, spoken, chanted, remembered. At dusk, when the cattle come home and the dust glows gold in the last light, an old man by a village fire tells of Bhima's appetite and strength, and half the children laugh before the punch of it even lands. Of course, Bhima would be the sort of man who could break a warrior in the morning and ask what was for supper by noon. The listeners grin, and the night grows friendlier. Then the old man's voice softens. He speaks of Arjuna, who drew the bowstring like a musician, finding the note hidden in the air. He speaks of Nakula, beautiful as a prince in a dream, and Sahadeva, quiet and knowing, with eyes that always seemed to be looking one thought beyond everyone else. He speaks of Draupadi, dark and radiant, with fire enough for 5 kings and sorrow enough for an age. And at last, he speaks of Yudhishthira, who kept walking. The fire cracks. Clarified butter hisses as someone tips a little into the flame. The smell rises warm and rich. Night insects sing from the grass. Above them, stars appear one by one. You are there with them, listening. Elsewhere, in a temple hall, cooled by thick stone walls, a priest recites their names with the measured rhythm of someone drawing water from a deep well. The sound floats between pillars blackened by 1,000 lamps. Jasmine wilts sweetly in brass bowls. Conch shells rest silent now, but the chant itself is enough. Kunti's sons, Pandu's line, Draupadi of the fragrant hair. The words go up with incense smoke and settle into the beams. By the rivers, they are remembered too. The Ganga keeps moving, never hurried, never truly still. At dawn, women step down the ghats with copper pots balanced at the hip. The stone is damp and cool. The water touches ankles, calves, knees. Priests murmur mantras. Someone scatters marigold petals. Someone folds hands toward the current. And mixed with prayer, mixed with the names of gods and ancestors, come the names of those great travelers who once ruled and then let rule go. Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva, Draupadi. The river takes every name and carries it without complaint. It has heard older griefs than these. It has carried ashes, flowers, vows, tears, and kings. It carries this too. Seasons turn over the memory of them. Monsoon rain lashes palace roofs and mountain shrines alike. Water runs in silver ropes from carved eaves. Earth releases that rich, dark smell that rises only when the first heavy drops strike dust. Winter comes clear and thin. Summer follows with hot wind and the drone of cicadas in mango groves. Empires measure themselves in years. Rivers and mountains do not bother. And the Himalayas keep their silence. High above the lands of men, where eagles wheel and snow blinds the eye at noon, the path of the final ascent lies hidden more often than seen. Ice forms, ice melts, new snow covers old stone. The ridges glow rose gold at sunrise, then white, then blue, under evening shadow. No banner stands there, no carved pillar marks the place. Only vastness, only cold light, only that feeling that something holy happened here, and the mountain, being a mountain, saw no need to boast of it. You can feel the air there even now, thin, clean, almost empty of smell, except for snow itself and the faint mineral bite of rock. The world narrows to breath, to heartbeat, to one foot placed before the next. And if you let your mind drift upward, gently, without straining, you may imagine that they are still climbing, not struggling now, not grieving, just going on. Draupadi's dark hair no longer whipped by cruel wind, but shining softly. Bhima walking without hunger. Arjuna without the weight of bow or vow. Nakula and Sahadeva side by side, easy and unburdened. Yudhishthira steady as ever. And the dog, tail low, paws soundless in the snow, exactly where he belongs. No one is left behind there. That is the comfort of the final image. Not a court, not a battlefield, not the dice, hall, not the ashes of war, a road of white silence and companions gathered into peace. Below, their descendants rule, marry, pray, argue, harvest, rebuild, and grow old in their turn. The line continues. Lamps are lit each evening, rice is washed, horses are watered. Children ask for one more tale before sleep, and somewhere an elder gives in, because this is how such things survive. Not in stone alone, in voice, soft voice, patient voice, a voice that says once there were brothers born into trouble. Once there was a queen wronged and unbroken. Once there was a king who would not abandon even a dog at the edge of heaven. And hearing it, the listeners settle, because something sacred has been carried safely across another night. The snow keeps falling in the high places. The river keeps chanting below. The thrones are occupied. The old heroes are gone from the earth. And still in lamp glow, in temple murmur, in the hush between one breath and the next, they remain. Until at last, the mountains are only shadow. The fire is only embers. The names are only warmth in the dark. And somewhere, very far off and very near, on a path no storm can erase, 7 quiet figures keep walking into light. The snow keeps falling, the river keeps moving, and the night grows still around them.